Aura, Kale Arclight. The scent of scorched stone and iron clung to the ruins like a memory that refused to fade. Silence reigned. No wind, no birds, no life. Only the lazy curl of smoke rising from shattered earth, and the ghostly echo of screams that had already died. Kale Arclight stood at the rim of a crater. His Black Academy cape was torn, fluttering in a wind that didn't exist. Each step crunched on ash. Each breath felt heavier than the last. Even the sky above seemed to sag beneath the weight of what had happened here. Like the world itself remembered. Third squad, confirmed dead. The voice came from his calm crystal, flat, metallic. Kale didn't answer. Blood streaked down his knuckles. His lip was split, his hands trembled. This wasn't a dungeon raid. It was a massacre, and he was the only one left. Hours earlier, the capital of Aurenia, Sol Maris, glimmered beneath the noonday sun, all towers and pride. White spires veined with gold rose toward the heavens. Airships darted between them like dragonflies. Banners of the great guilds rippled above the crowded markets. Everything gleamed. Everything whispered power. Kale Arclight didn't belong to any of it. Another rejection? Yeah, seventh one. They said your aura's unstable again. Unrankable. He sat alone on the academy steps, hood drawn, fingers tracing the frayed edges of his gloves. Around him, initiates showed off relics, sparred, laughed, the chosen few. Kale wasn't among them. Not chosen by a guild. Not assigned to a party. Not even wanted as a trainee. Every scan gave him a different aura reading. Sometimes D. Sometimes A. Once the crystal had cracked. So the academy branded him null type. Unstable. Unclassifiable. Useless. He told himself it didn't matter. It did. God, it did. Present. Kale's breath shuddered. The dungeon should have been a simple run. A low-tier rift, one squad, one B-rank lead. Easy credits. Then the rift pulsed. It twisted. Colors warped, black and red veins spreading like rot. Monsters came through that weren't in any database. Not beasts. Shadows. Moving like thought, killing like instinct. He didn't see it happen. He felt it. A pressure. Ancient, intelligent, hungry, watching from somewhere beyond. And then everyone screamed. Beneath the ash, something glimmered. Kale knelt, fingers brushing a melted shard of his blade. The moment he touched it, a whisper crawled through his mind. You survived. Not a voice. A presence. Cold. Knowing. Kale's aura flared on its own. Erratic, unstable, alive. Aura detected. Ashen type, unregistered class. Condition. Unstable sync. Adaptive root detected. Commencing resonance. Pain lanced through his core. Symbols danced across his vision. Glyphs, code. Language not meant for humans. His chest burned like it was being rewritten. Adaptive aura? Impossible. The Academy called it myth. A power that couldn't be ranked or contained. It was his. A sound broke the stillness. A heartbeat, loud, molten alive. Kale looked up. Across the crater stood something shaped like a man, wrapped in rippling black haze. The Eternal. It hadn't left. No eyes. No face. But Kale felt its gaze. Huh. What a weak aura. Kale's blood cooled. His fear folded into something sharper. He rose slowly, hand gripping the ruined hilt. His voice came out steady. Oh, what a strong one. Resonance triggered, ashen sync. Stage 1, Embers Park initiated. Relic shard bonded. Charcoal fong, temporary weapon. Kale moved. Faster than before. Faster than he thought possible. The Eternal raised a hand, too slow. Kale struck. A flash of flame. A burst of ash. A scream. His own. More release than pain. The blade bit deep. The Eternal bled. Not much, but enough. Kale didn't stop. He pressed forward. Rage, fear, doubt burning away under the surge of his aura. He wasn't null. He wasn't a failure. He was something else. The Eternal roared. Tendrils lashed out, slamming him into stone. His ribs cracked. Blood filled his mouth. Still, he smiled. Not bad for a weakling, right? The Eternal hesitated. Wary now. Kale pushed off the ground. Every nerve screamed. Every heartbeat thundered. Just one more strike. His aura pulsed, cracks spreading underfoot. He dashed again, and the world went black. Darkness, not silence, because Kale could hear it. That faint crackle, that low hiss. Fire, not outside, inside. It wasn't pain, not exactly. It was change. Something molten surged through his veins, pulsing like liquid light. Not just heat, but intention. Sync stabilization, 84%. 92%. Status, Ashen Aura, Core Awakening initiated. Trait unlocked. Residual Echo, Adaptive Absorption of Aura Patterns. Kale's eyes snapped open. He was lying in a rough stone chamber lit by trembling crystal light. The air was thick with smoke and dust. Somewhere beyond, faint groans echoed. Injured hunters, or maybe the ruins themselves collapsing. He sat up, wincing. His ribs screamed. His shoulder hung useless, but he was alive. And the eternal was gone. For now. Beside him lay the broken blade. Charcoal Fong, still radiating warmth. The metal shimmered faintly, breathing with the same ashen glow that flickered now beneath his skin. He remembered the battle. So did he. Every breath, every heartbeat carried that presence now. No longer a flicker, but a bond. The aura wasn't something he wielded anymore. It was him, alive. The stone doors burst open. Boots, armor, authority. 3 figures in Sunspire gold stormed inside, weapons drawn. At their head was Vale Solane, Vanguard Commander, one of the Academy's untouchables. Kale had only heard his name whispered. Hold him. Kale blinked, dazed. Wait, A surge of golden aura crashed into him. Chains of solar light snared his wrists, burning like molten iron. He gritted his teeth, fighting the pull. I survived, he hissed. I saved nothing but ashes. Vale's gaze was cold. You emerged from a classified black zone rift. Everyone else dead. You, untouched. I'm not the enemy. No, Vale said flatly. You're worse. You're unknown. Hours later, Sunspire Detention Zone. Kale sat shackled in a cold white cell buried beneath the capital. Aura-suppressing runes hummed softly overhead. They dulled the fire in his veins, but couldn't extinguish it. The ashen flames still whispered, restless. Waiting. A panel flickered to life. A hologram. Zara Valeth. Her image shimmered in pale light. Smile distant. Eyes unreadable. Well. The ghost rises from the ash. Kale's expression hardened. You're the one who sent us into that rift. I didn't send you, Zara said mildly. I nudged fate. Besides, look what it gave you. Kale glanced at his hands. The burns were gone. In their place, faint runes pulsed under his skin, breathing with the same ember light as before. What do you want? Zara tilted her head. To offer you a choice. System trigger. Aura path selection. Class detected. Hybrid. Blade Soul / Revenant. Specialization trait. Ashborn. Aura evolves through battle. Gains strength from the fallen. Choose. Fight for rank or burn the system. Kale said nothing. His mind replayed the screams. The crater. The Eternal's voice. What weak aura. His fists clenched. The air trembled. No more. Zara's smirk deepened. Good. Then it's time. Elsewhere. Noctheron Marsh. Far from Sunspire, in a land drowned in rotten fog, the ground split open. A pillar of black light tore through the sky, shattering clouds and silence alike. The air itself seemed to tremble. Something old had awakened, and within that endless dark, a single name echoed. Kale Arclight.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
The cell was too quiet. Kale had been in silence before, during punishment drills, long academy nights, and the aftermath of failed missions. But this was different. The kind of silence that breathed. He could hear it in the way the mana around him stilled. How the suppressor glyphs embedded in the walls seemed to pulse slightly slower now, like they, too, were holding their breath. It had been hours since Zara vanished from the crystal feed, her words still echoing in his mind. Choose, fight for rank, or burn the system. He hadn't answered aloud. He hadn't needed to. Something within him had already decided. Kale's fingers moved slowly, tracing the faint scars burned into his skin. Runes, thin and nearly invisible unless you looked closely. His aura didn't hum like the others. It whispered like a secret fire beneath cold ash. The door creaked open, not with ceremony, not with guards, just open. He didn't move. A pause, then the soft sound of footsteps. Light, precise, familiar. Lyra Solvine. She stepped inside, her golden hair tied back beneath her medic's mantle, the sun veil feather relic pulsing faintly at her hip. Her eyes, normally warm, were hard now, tired in a way only trauma could sculpt. You're awake. Yeah. She glanced at the wall, then the suppressor glyphs. I deactivated them. You're welcome. Kale raised a brow. Didn't think you'd come. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned his face, searching for something. Maybe the boy who once saved her in that collapsed tunnel 3 years ago. The boy who'd given her the strength to stand again. All she saw now was someone standing on the edge of something else. I'm not here as a friend, she finally said. I'm here because something's wrong with this place. With them. Kale stood slowly. What happened? Lyra hesitated, then handed him a small crystal. A memory shard. He held it up, and it flickered to life. A projection. Sunspire operatives dragging out a mangled creature from the ruins of the dungeon. It was half-burned, its form twisted, oozing something that hissed against the air. But that wasn't the shocking part. It was wearing hunter gear. A corrupted, Kale muttered. That's impossible. They don't keep their minds. They don't, Lyra whispered. Unless someone makes them. Kale's fists clenched. The Academy had lied. The Guild had lied. That wasn't a natural dungeon breach. It was a test. Or a purge. Elsewhere, Ember-Deep Outlands. Smoke rose lazily over the blackened bones of what had once been a scouting outpost. Drake Nor crouched beside the wreckage, shirtless beneath his blood-stained cloak, the infernal gauntlets humming with heat. He cracked his neck, eyes scanning the battlefield. No survivors. No sign of Kale, either. His jaw twitched. Not here, he muttered. Damn it, Ash Boy. A breeze passed, carrying the faint scent of blood and sulfur. He sniffed the air, then smiled. Found you. He stood, aura flaring around him like wildfire. Back in Sol Maris, Sunspire Detention Complex. Kale moved through the corridors with Lyra beside him. Both dressed in cloaks scavenged from the storage vault. The guards were unconscious. Some would wake up with headaches. Others wouldn't wake at all. He didn't care. They reached the exit, a massive gate guarded by a single stone statue, one of the Watcher constructs that kept rogue Aura users in check. As they approached, its eyes glowed red. Unauthorized exit. Relic code, not detected. Engaging lockdown. Kale, we need to, Lyra started. But he was already moving. Aura flared. Ashen sync. Phase 2 initiated. Skill manifested. Soul Scorch. Effect. Burns target aura core over time. Adaptive intensity. Kale dashed forward. His body blurred. Flame licking his feet as he weaved between the statue's stone limbs. The construct swung, a wide, arcing slam. But Kale ducked low, slid beneath it, and slammed his palm against its chest. His aura ignited. The statue staggered back, its chest sizzling, a deep crack forming where his hand had touched. Kale's voice was low. You don't get to stop me now. The construct lifted its arms for a second strike. But Kale was already gone. Ash trailed behind him like wings. Skill unlocked. Burnout dash. Effect. Short distance burst dash. Leaves behind burning afterimage. Lyra blinked. That's not aura movement. That's something else. Kale landed beside her, his breathing calm despite the strain. It's mine now. The gates opened, reacting to the sudden disruption in the suppressor network. Beyond them, freedom, but also something more. A city that had turned its back on him. A world that would rather bury truths than face them. Kale took one step forward and froze, because standing in the middle of the street outside, leaning against a lamppost like he owned the world, was Drake nor, Kale muttered. The other boy grinned. Yo, you didn't die. Kale scowled. You sound disappointed. Drake rolled his shoulders, flexing his gauntlets. Nah, I need you alive. For now. Lyra frowned. You two know each other? Rivals, Drake said. Enemies, Kale corrected. Same thing, Drake shrugged. He's the only one I haven't completely broken in a fight. Kale took a slow breath. Now wasn't the time. But the look in Drake's eyes said this wasn't just a reunion. It was a warning. There's movement in the lower districts, Drake said. Guilds are scrambling. Something's happening in the dungeons. Something big. And guess what name keeps showing up in the crystal echoes? Kale narrowed his gaze. Mine. Drake grinned. You're famous now, Ash Boy. Or maybe infamous. Far below, Dungeon Nexus Core. Deep beneath Arena, where the ley line scars converged in forgotten stone halls, a ripple passed through the old machines. Sealed doors opened for the first time in centuries. And at the heart of it all, slumbering beneath a crown of bone and fire, an Eternal opened its eyes. Its aura laughed. Rain. Heavy, soaking, relentless. It hadn't rained in Solmaris for weeks, dry season, but now the heavens wept as if mourning what was coming. Kale stood beneath a fractured canopy on the outskirts of the city, watching water sizzle off his skin. Not because of heat, but because of his aura. It rejected the cold, rejected anything that dulled its hunger. Drake paced behind him like a caged animal. The bastard hadn't stopped talking since they escaped the city. Listen, Ash Boy, he muttered, cracking his neck. You need a guild. Not for protection, screw that. You need access. Vaults. Forbidden dungeons. Relic smuggling lines. You can't evolve without real kills. I don't need a guild, Kale muttered. I need answers. You'll find both in the same place. Kale turned slowly. And where's that? Drake grinned. Ember Deep. Kale stared. Ember Deep was suicide. A ruined city swallowed by a dungeon rift 4 decades ago, now sealed off by 7 layers of spatial wards, cursed ley lines, and guild law. Entry meant death. Survival meant being hunted by the world. Perfect place to start a rebellion. Perfect place for the burned. System alert. Independent progression path activated. Title gained. Ashbound defector. Aura gains passive resistance to suppression fields. Perk unlocked. Underground access. Factionless relic traders now visible. As if to confirm it, Kale's vision blurred momentarily. And just like that, a faint icon appeared in the corner of his system feed, a blood-smeared Fong symbol. He touched it mentally. A list unfurled. Vault. Fong of the Unseen, Noctheron. Trader. Halvra. Relic Forger, Rogue Tier. Dungeon Access. Ember Deep Cleft Tier 2. Entry Code. Locked. Kale blinked. Fong of the Unseen, he muttered. Drake stopped. You got that? He asked, voice suddenly serious. Kale turned. What is it? Drake didn't answer immediately. He walked closer, the grin gone, replaced with something more primal. More afraid. That's not just a rebel mark, Drake muttered. It's a brand. You're officially part of the Black Ring now. Kale narrowed his eyes. And what is that? Drake paused, then grinned again, wide and mad. The faction that kills gods. Meanwhile, in the shadows of Noctheron Marsh, Zara Valeth walked calmly beneath the ruins of a sunken tower, mist curling around her like a cloak of memory. A figure in bone-white robes waited in the dark, faceless, except for the mask carved from obsidian. You moved him too early, it said, voice layered with echoes. Zara didn't flinch. He was already moving, she replied. I simply showed him where the fire was. The figure tilted its head. You remember what he is. Zara's eyes flicked with pale light. More than you think. The masked figure stepped forward. The others will come. The Ember Brood. The Watchers. Even the Night Train. I know, Zara said, voice cool. Let them. Kale's not ready yet, but soon, he won't just challenge the system. She smiled faintly. He'll burn the throne it stands on. Back in Solmaris outskirts, abandoned tram station. Kale, Lyra, and Drake now stood at the platform's edge, an ancient underground transit point lost beneath time and politics. A shattered sign still bore the words, To Ember Deep, authorized guild only. Lyra finally spoke. This is a terrible idea. Kale didn't answer. She stepped in front of him. You think getting stronger will make this better? That aura alone will fix what the world's become. Kale's eyes met hers. Quiet. Focused. No, he said. Then, I think I need to become something they can't control. Lyra's eyes softened, but only for a moment. I'm not letting you go alone. Drake snorted. He won't be alone. I'm technically his rival, and possibly his co-conspirator in the apocalypse. Lyra shot him a glare. Kale reached for his relic blade. Even shattered, the charcoal thong pulsed with heat. Drake cracked his gauntlets. Lyra adjusted the sun veil feather, her aura shimmering with light like a shield of dawn. Then Kale stepped forward. Dungeon access point activated. Ember Deep cleft, Tier 2. Warning, unsealed dungeon zone. Apex ranked entities detected. All progression outside official guild parameters will result in global bounty declaration. A long silence. Then Kale grinned. Good. Elsewhere, the Blight Vault. In a blackened ruin beneath Lyriel's Divide, ancient gears turned. Slumbering statues cracked open. Forgotten records flared to life. 7 names appeared. 6 of them red. 1 now burned in white flame. Kale Arclight, Ashen trait detected. Class, Revenant/Blade Soul Hybrid. Aura type, Adaptive/Residual. Status, Irregular. Threat rating, Escalating. Next protocol, Deploy Nitrain. Far above the vault, hidden beneath layers of shadow, a lone figure watched the world through eyes that hadn't blinked in decades. Carrie's Nitrain smiled. It was silent beneath the world. No birdsong, no wind, only the rumble of the old tram echoing through hollow, rusted rails. The Ember Deep line hadn't run for 30 years. The system marked it sealed. The guilds marked it forgotten. But the moment Kale stepped aboard that cracked steel car, the world remembered. Aura lock disengaged. Relic suppression lifted. Entering Wild Zone. Ember Deep cleft, Tier 2 dungeon. Kale felt the shift in the air immediately, thick, oppressive, like the dungeon itself was watching. Lyra shivered beside him. Drake, on the other hand, looked thrilled. This place, he breathed, running fingers across scorched metal walls, used to be one of the guild capitals, a throned city before it fell. Kale kept his gaze forward. What destroyed it? Drake cracked his neck. They say it was a Gateborn, an Eternal. Did it survive? Oh, it didn't just survive, Drake chuckled. It nested. As the tram screeched to a halt, ancient doors hissed open to reveal the buried remains of Ember Deep. It wasn't just ruins. It was fossilized battle. Char bones were fused into stone. Tower husks leaned like dying beasts. Entire streets were cracked open, revealing abyssal chasms beneath. And in the distance, towering over the wreckage like a god of war, stood the broken husk of a giant statue, half man, half beast, its mouth open in a silent scream. Kale stepped into the dust. His aura reacted immediately. Ashen trait activated. Residual echo. Absorbing residual aura signature. Complete. Aura memory unlocked. Wailing Steel Battalion. Final stand. Flashes of the past blurred into Kale's mind. Knights in ember-forged armor. Screams. Fire. A black-winged thing descending from the sky. Then silence. Kale staggered. Lyra caught him. What did you see? Death, Kale whispered. A lot of it. And a voice. Faint. Whispered through time itself. Not all gods were born immortal. Some earned it through blood. Elsewhere, Noctheron Marsh. Zara watched the horizon shift. Storms brewed on unnatural currents, spiraling toward Ember Deep. She adjusted her wraith bell, whispering to it. The relic pulsed once, then revealed an echo. Kale. His aura shimmered in her vision, not as one color, but as many, swirling, changing. Ashen. The cursed hybrid. The one the world couldn't classify. She smiled. It's begun. Back in Ember Deep, Kale's group moved cautiously, each step echoing across bone-dry silence. Drake crouched low, brushing aside rubble to reveal a sigil buried beneath. Guild mark. Worn and cracked. Sunspire Vanguard. Kale recognized it instantly. Vale's faction. Lyra nodded, a frown forming. They tried to reclaim Ember Deep last year. Lost 50 hunters in a day. No bodies were recovered. No one recovers bodies here, Drake muttered. The deeper they went, the more unnatural it became. Walls weren't just scorched, they were warped. Buildings curved inward, as if trying to escape something at the center. The air felt thick with hate. And then the howls began. Apex-class hostiles detected. Ember Hounds X4. Aura rank A-. From the shadows crawled beasts of molten bone and ember-coated fur, each one the size of a direwolf. Their eyes burned with feral intelligence. Kale stepped forward. His aura surged, adaptive, restless. He drew the charcoal foam, still cracked, still imperfect. The Ember Hounds lunged. Kale didn't dodge. He moved through them, borne out, dash flaring, and slashed in an arc that bisected two instantly. Ashen adaptation. Beastfire trait detected, integrating. Skill gained. Cinder step, short-range teleport with fire trail. Kale exhaled as flames licked around his blade. What a strong aura. The last Ember Hound snarled, then backed away. It recognized the predator. Kale surged forward again, this time leaving a trail of smoldering ash, and cleaved the last beast in half. Drake whistled. Okay, I know I was hyped for this trip, but now I'm officially terrified of you. Lyra said nothing, eyes wide. Not because of Kale's power, but because of what she saw just behind him. A symbol had appeared, etched into the air by the blood of the slain beasts. A ring of ash and flame. Kale turned to look at it too. The mark pulsed, then dissolved into dust. New aura, trait forming. Ashen Dominion. Incomplete. Kill more Apex-class monsters to unlock domain-level evolution. Kale didn't say a word, but he felt it. Something was waking inside him. Something tied to this place. Hours passed. The group found a temporary haven inside an old guild barracks, reinforced with aura steel. Lyra set up a barrier ward using the sun veil feather, bathing the interior in faint golden light. Kale sat alone at the edge, his blade resting against his shoulder. You should sleep, Lyra said gently. I don't dream, Kale replied. Everyone dreams. He glanced at her, then away. Not when you're half dead inside. Silence. Then Lyra sat beside him anyway. I don't think you're dead inside, she said softly. You're just afraid the fire will burn you too. Kale's grip tightened. Maybe that's the point. In the depths of Ember Deep, forgotten catacombs, a figure stirred in the dark. Not a monster, not an eternal, but a man. Drake Arclight, Kale's brother. Still alive, still burning. He leaned against a stone wall etched in ancient aura runes, a massive halberd resting beside him, its edge glowing with residual flame. Someone was coming. He could feel it, and he smiled. Welcome home, little brother. There was something wrong with the silence now. It didn't feel like absence. It felt like anticipation. Kale stood outside the aura-steeped barracks, staring into the crimson haze that had settled over the ruins. Ember Deep no longer felt dead. It felt alert. He tightened his grip on the charcoal foam, its once dull edge now faintly glowing. The blade had absorbed something, heat, rage, memory. He wasn't sure it belonged entirely to him anymore. Hey, Drake called from the second floor. You're doing that broody stare into the void thing again. Either go kill something or sleep. Kale ignored him. There was something in the fog. A pulse. Familiar. He took one step forward, and the world fractured. A single aura slash ripped through the haze, splitting the ground between them in a perfect line of molten ruin. Aura rank detected, S-class. Relic, Ember Halberd, God-forged. Kale didn't need the system prompt. He knew that aura, knew the stance. The voice that followed, etched into his bones. You've gotten taller. The smoke parted and revealed him. Drake Arclight, Kale's brother. Alive, but no longer the man Kale remembered. He was wrapped in scorched armor, pulsing with volatile flame aura. His halberd dripped with embers that didn't fall, but floated, defying gravity, circling him like tiny comets. One eye was covered by a glowing sigil band, some kind of ancient relic binding. The other eye? burning with pride, and something darker. Kale's breath caught in his throat. Drake! The man stepped forward, dragging the halberd's edge along the ground. It carved molten grooves into stone. You should have stayed out of Ember Deep, Drake said flatly. The system lied to you. Lyra POV, seconds earlier. She felt it before she saw it. A spike of aura so dense, it nearly collapsed her barrier spell. She turned and saw Kale staring into the fog. Then the crack of power. Then him. Drake Arclight. Her breath froze. He was supposed to be dead. Everything in the Hunter archive said so. Ember Brood had fallen years ago. But now, there he stood, unchanged, unbroken, infused with something old. Drake Nor stood beside her, a grim look tightening his face. That's not just a man anymore, he muttered. That's someone who's been feeding off dungeon cores like candy. Lyra gripped her relic. Should we help? Nor shook his head. This isn't our fight. Back to Kale. Drake stopped 10 feet away. Kale couldn't move. 1,000 memories fought for space in his head. Training his boys. Laughing during storm hunts. Drake teaching him how to hide aura signatures with soot and shadow. Then the betrayal. The Ember Brood massacre. Kale's voice was barely a whisper. What? Drake smiled faintly. You think you're the only one the world tried to bury, Kale? He said. I led the most powerful hunter guild Arena had ever seen. We found something in Ember Deep, something alive. And the Vanguard called it treason. You fused with it. No, Drake corrected. It fused with me. A second pulse of aura exploded from him, blowing back the ruins like a windstorm. Kale barely held his ground. Aura clash, initiated. Drake pointed his halberd. Let's see if you inherited anything useful. He vanished. Not a dash. Not a blink. He erased distance. Kale barely reacted in time, his instincts flaring as he activated Cinder Step, narrowly escaping a cleaving strike that obliterated the ground he'd just stood on. The force shattered an entire street. Kale reappeared behind him and slashed. But Drake was already turning, catching the blow with a halberd shaft. Sparks flew. You've improved, Drake muttered. Good. Then he kicked Kale square in the chest. The world flipped. Kale slammed into a ruined pillar, coughing blood, ribs screaming. His brother walked toward him, unhurried. You think your adaptive aura makes you special? Drake asked. Let me show you what real evolution looks like. He stabbed the halberd into the ground, and the city responded. All around them, the ember-cracked stone glowed with ancient glyphs, radiating outward in a massive circle. Domain fusion detected. Ember Throne, Drake Arclight. Effect. Drake's aura increases by 200% within domain. All fire-based attacks gain homing affinity. Ashen-type enemies suffer 30% debuff. Kale tried to stand, but the ground itself resisted him. His adaptive aura flickered, hesitant, fragmented. Drake looked down at him. Even your aura doesn't know what you are, little brother. Elsewhere, Zara POV. Zara watched from afar, her wraith bell showing echoes of the battle. She frowned. The domain Drake activated wasn't just a power amplification. It was alive, linked to something deeper beneath Ember Deep. Something chained, and now Kale's presence was waking it. Foolish timing, she muttered. But Parver smiled. The ashen spark had finally met its kindling. Back to Kale. His thoughts blurred. Vision dimmed. The domain drained everything from him. But something refused to break. Buried deeper than aura. Deeper than memory. Instinct. Kale gritted his teeth and roared. Ashen trait activated. Soul Scorch, partial awakening. Effect. Converts stored aura echoes into burst strength. Side effect. Temporary pain, immunity. Cost. Residual memory loss. A ring of black fire erupted from him, shattering the domain's sigils beneath his feet. Even Drake blinked, then grinned. Now that the Arclight blood. Kale surged forward, faster than before, his blade now glowing with flickering embers and something darker. Drake parried, but staggered slightly. Kale had broken through the aura debuff. Even in his domain, slash after slash rained down. Kale no longer fighting for survival. He was testing himself. Drake caught one of the blows, but Kale spun low, swept his legs, then delivered a reverse slash that cracked his brother's armor. Blood. Just a line. But enough. Kale landed, breathing heavily. The domain pulsed again, but now it felt uneven. Damaged. Drake looked at the cut on his chest. Touched the blood. Then he laughed. "All right, little brother," he said. "Maybe you are ready." He stepped back, and the domain collapsed around him in a shower of ash. Drake turned without another word. "Wait," Kale shouted. "Why show yourself now?" His brother paused. "Because the Eternals are stirring," he said, "and I won't be the only one waking up." He tossed something toward Kale, a fragment of a broken relic. A sigil Kale recognized. Xeris. Then he vanished, engulfed in smoke and flame. The shattered relic fragment in Kale's hand pulsed faintly. It was unmistakable, etched with the same crescent glyph found on Xera's wraith bell. But this one was cracked, burned at the edges as if someone tried to destroy it with sheer aura force. Drake left it behind for a reason. Kale stood amidst the dying embers of the broken domain, shoulders heavy, lungs aching from the burn of ashen, surge withdrawal. The pain had returned, livid and sharp, now that the temporary immunity of Soul Scorch had ended. His ribs throbbed, his arm twitched involuntarily, and yet he smiled. He'd landed a hit. Not on just anyone, on Drake. Not as the younger brother tagging along, but as a fighter, an equal. Still, the warning lingered. The Eternals are stirring. He clenched the broken bell tighter. What was Xera hiding? Moments later, surface camp. "You fought him," Lyra shouted, storming toward Kale, sun veil feather glowing anxiously. "You're not even fully tuned, and you picked a fight with an S-class domain user." Kale sat on a stone, ignoring her concern, still staring at the relic shard in his hand. Drake snorted. "That wasn't a fight. That was a one-sided schooling with a lucky counterstrike." Kale didn't rise to the bait. He spoke quietly. "He could have killed me, but he didn't." Lyra folded her arms, visibly worried. "Then what did he want?" Kale met her gaze. "To send a message." He held up the broken relic. "Xera's involved in this. Somehow." Xera, POV, knocked her on marsh. Xera's eyes fluttered open the moment her bell fragment was disturbed. The echoes in the swamp screamed. The connection hadn't been broken. It had been severed, forcefully, by Drake himself. And now Kale had it. Her lips curved in a humorless smile. "So it begins." Behind her, inside the ruins of a submerged obelisk, the aura shadows coiled and whispered. Old voices, dead voices, all bound to her cursed mist. The bell on her hip rang softly, without her touching it. She turned her head slightly. "You felt him too, didn't you?" she asked. No answer came. Only a cold wind that carried a scent of ash. Drake had awakened something beneath Emberdeep, and Kale's ashen aura was starting to resonate. Back to Kale's camp. Night fell quickly in Emberdeep. The skies above the ruins never stayed clear for long. Clouds of soot choked out the stars, and the ground itself pulsed with residual aura. Kale couldn't sleep. He sat near the edge of camp, blade resting beside him, relic shard on his lap. The system was quiet tonight. No prompts, no guidance. It almost felt like it was watching too. He replayed the clash over and over in his mind. The weight of Drake's domain. The overwhelming difference in aura control. He needed to grow. Faster. And he needed answers. So he called her. "Xera." There was a beat of silence. Then a gust of wind stirred the ashes. And she stepped from a mist. She was always unnerving, moving without sound, dressed in veils that didn't flow with the wind, but with intent. Her wraith bell hung at her hip, glowing faintly with pale blue light. She looked down at the shard in Kale's hand and sighed. "So, he gave it to you." Kale nodded. "He said you knew what's coming." Xera didn't answer immediately. She reached out, fingers ghosting over the cracked fragment. Her expression, usually unreadable, shifted. Not fear, not guilt, sorrow. "That bell," she said, "was once part of a seal." Kale narrowed his eyes. "Seal?" Xera nodded. "Long ago, before the aura system fractured the world into ranks, there were no dungeons, only domains. And in one of those domains, the Eternals were born." "You mean, not born like you and I, manifested?" Incarnations of pure aura resonance. They were never meant to exist long, but one survived, and it didn't want to fade. Kale's breath caught. You helped seal it. Zara looked away. I was part of the cult that worshipped it. Kale stood abruptly. You what? She didn't flinch. My wraith bell was forged from its dying scream. The cursed mist wasn't a gift. It was a punishment. A shackle. I betrayed it. Helped bind it beneath Ember Deep. And now it's waking up again. She nodded once. Drake found what we buried. And you, Kale, you're attuned to its pulse. Kale's hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from the burning coil of understanding forming in his chest. The nightmares. The voices in the dungeon. The whisper in the flames that called him by name. He wasn't just adapting to aura types. He was syncing with something ancient. Zara knelt beside the fire, pulling a scroll from her cloak. It was old, written in a dead dialect, scrawled with aura marks. Read this, she said. It's the Hunter's Bane doctrine, the true one. The system doesn't allow its full version to circulate anymore. Kel took it cautiously. Why give this to me? Because, Zara said, voice low, if you survive long enough to reach transcendence, you won't be human anymore. His heartbeat slowed. What will I be? Zara looked up, eyes glowing faintly. A vessel. System update notification. Hidden layer accessed. New skill path unlocked. Echo of the Bound. Effect. Absorbs aura remnants from relics tied to sealed eternals. Skills gain will be unstable until synchrofusion occurs. Warning. Soul stability threshold at 72%. Further integration may risk identity bleed. Kale stared at the prompt. The choice was no longer about strength. It was about control. He could gain power faster than ever now, but at the risk of becoming something else. He looked at Zara. Why are you helping me? She didn't answer right away. Finally, she whispered, because last time we sealed the wrong one. Somewhere beyond Aurenia, unknown location. Inside a forgotten cathedral of blackstone and bone, a figure stirred. Its body was carved from crystallized aura, its face a swirling void. Around it, chained creatures knelt, failed hunters, corrupted relics, malformed fusions. One of the chains trembled. The figure turned and smiled. The Ashen has awakened. Its voice didn't echo. It erased sound. The scroll crackled faintly in Kale's hands. Its aura-reactive ink pulsed like a heartbeat, as if the parchment itself remembered what it had witnessed. He stared at the faded sigils, trying to make sense of their arrangement. Hunter's Bane Doctrine, Verse 7, Echo, Ascension. The translation was partial. Some words had no modern equivalent. Others pulsed with meaning he felt rather than understood. When the vessel stares too long into the echo learns to speak back. Kale shivered. The air grew heavier around him, not from weather, but from something deeper, his own aura shifting. He wasn't alone in his body anymore. The Ashen core, once dormant and reactive, now pulsed with a low growl of intent. Sunspire Camp, Dawn. Drake, nor was already up, fists glowing faintly with flame aura as he punched into a reinforced stone slab. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. He wasn't training. He was venting. Kale approached, eyes still bloodshot from lack of sleep. You knew, didn't you? Kale said, voice flat. Drake didn't stop. Knew what? That Zara's relic is part of a seal. That we're walking over a cage holding something older than the system. Drake slammed his fist into the slab, shattering it into molten dust. He turned slowly. I didn't know. I remembered. Kale blinked. What? Drake's eyes narrowed, aura flaring. We've both seen that place in dreams, haven't we? That cathedral of bone and ash. That voice that knows your name. You think it's coincidence? Kale's breath caught. So it wasn't just him. Drake grabbed a canteen, poured it over his hands to cool them. I fought it once, when I first reached S rank. Deep in Ember Deep, where no system dares map the terrain. The Eternal Spawns didn't just try to kill me, they tried to welcome me. Kale felt his pulse slow. So we're both. Mark, Drake growled, tied to the bound echo. Maybe different ways, but same fate. System notification. Passive aura drift detected. Warning, Echo signature influence spreading. Recommend stabilization via sync rite or relic bonding. Unlocked. Ash Pulse, Level 1. Effect. Your aura now emits residual ashen signatures. Monsters with corrupted affinity will hesitate to engage. Normal allies will feel unease in proximity. Kale gritted his teeth. He didn't want to become something that repelled his allies. But the power, it was addicting, adaptive, responsive. It shaped itself in the presence of greater threats, like it wanted to fight. Later, Dungeon 3, Hollow Echoes. Lyra, Kale, Drake, and Zara stood before the entrance of a newly emerged dungeon. It wasn't part of the official registry. No scouts, no readings, only a rift in the air that hummed like a whisper trying to speak. Zara stood still, face pale. "This shouldn't be here," she murmured. Kale tilted his head. "But it is," and something inside called to him. Without waiting, he stepped through. The dungeon wasn't like the others. No beasts, no traps, just corridors of obsidian stone that reflected his thoughts. Kale stopped at a mirror-like wall. Inside it, he didn't see himself. He saw a version of him with eyes of ember and shadow, an ash-wrought. Its mouth moved silently. Kale stepped closer, and the wall rippled. "Let me in." Kale stumbled back, drawing his blade. The voice came from within his head, but it was not his. A wave of aura slammed into him. Heavy, ancient, suffocating. System override, domain breach detected. Ashen domain, sub-echo forming. The air twisted around Kale, reshaping into the first stage of his personal domain. A flickering memory of fire, ash, and battlefields. Zara's voice echoed from outside. "Kale, don't fight it. Let it shape, but don't yield." The echo surged again, this time speaking more clearly. "I burned the skies when your world still bled stars. Let me fight again." Kale's knees buckled. He clenched his fists. This thing wasn't just a voice, it was part of the ashen. A battle spirit sealed inside the aura. And it wanted out. New skill unlocked. Soul Brand, Ember Tier. Effect. The user can channel a fragment of the Echo Rot's battle knowledge for 15 seconds. Boosts reflexes, aura calculation, and aggression. Side effect. Rage Drift. Cool down, 5 minutes. Kale rose to his feet, eyes glowing faintly. "I'm not your vessel." He pointed his blade at the shifting wall. "But if we fight my way." He slashed the mirror, shattering it. Ash erupted like smoke, coiling around him. The domain resisted, but then bent. Accepted him. And then, the monsters arrived. Not beasts. Hunters. Twisted remnants of former S-class aura wielders, now infected by eternal spores. Their relics rusted into their flesh, eyes glowing with a mindless hunger. Drake burst through the rift, fists ignited. "Looks like we're late to the welcoming party." Zara followed, already ringing her bell, trapping echo signatures and sealing corrupted pathways. Lyra muttered a prayer, light aura forming radiant wards. Kale stood at the center. The monsters charged. Kale, active skill, Soul Brand, engage. Time slowed. Every breath felt synchronized with the battlefield. Kale's blade moved before thought. A parry, a twist, a counterstrike. He moved like someone who'd fought centuries of war, like someone who had been war. Drake barked a laugh. "Now that's more like it." Kale's eyes glowed faintly. "Oh, what a strong aura." He dove into the fray. System alert. Ashen domain expanding. Sub-echo layer integrated. Relic bond possible. Select catalyst required. Kale heard the prompt mid-battle. He needed a relic born of conflict to forge the next stage. His eyes locked onto a fallen, corrupted hunter. Its relic, a fractured helm carved from volcanic obsidian, still pulsed with embers. Kale reached out. As his hand closed around it, something answered. Relic fusion detected. Incompatible source. Attempting core override. Fusion successful. Ashbreaker helm acquired. Effect. Boosts Ashen domain control by 22%. Allows ambient aura absorption in combat. Side effect. Echo exposure increases post-battle instability. Kale collapsed to one knee, the helm fusing to his back like a dormant shield. The system dimmed. Silence returned. And in that silence, a whisper. Good, now open the next gate. How many echoes can a soul carry before it forgets which voice was its own? Kale stared at his reflection in a shallow pool of aura-tinted water. The ash-breaker helm was slung across his back, pulsating faintly with dull ember light. His own aura felt heavier now, not just dense, but watchful, like a second presence coiled beneath his skin. Zara crouched beside him, inspecting a corrupted hunter's relic with delicate fingers. That relic, she said softly, it shouldn't have fused. Not without purification. The ashen shouldn't accept impure cores. Kale didn't answer. He already knew the truth. The ashen didn't care about purity. It cared about strength. System notice. Echo retention exceeds safe threshold. Recommending sync right ceremony. Status. Suppressed memory fragments detected. Potential unlock. Bound origin. Subject. Kale Arclight. Drake Nor, arms crossed, leaned against a shard of broken obsidian near the pool. So, he said slowly, what the hell did you see in there? Kale didn't look up. A version of me that didn't stop burning. Drake whistled low. Sounds like a great drinking buddy. Lyra shot him a glare, then knelt beside Kale. You're not that thing, she said quietly. Whatever voice spoke in that domain, it's just residue. An echo. You're still you. Kale wanted to believe her. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw the other version of himself. Armor of blackened bone, eyes hollow with flame, a smile carved in grief. Not rage, not hatred, but purpose. Later that night, Kale wandered from the camp. The skies above were choked with swirling streaks of corrupted aura, signs that another eternal spawn gate was opening somewhere across Arena. But his focus was drawn downward, to a symbol etched in stone. An old one. He didn't remember carving it, but his hands reacted instinctively. He knelt and traced the runes. The crest of the bound. The symbol of those chosen by the Echo long before the system had names, relics, or dungeons. He felt the world tilt. And then, darkness. Memory fragment unlocked. Bound origin. Subject, Kale Arclight. Cycle, 7,928, pre-system Genesis. He stood in a world before the dungeons. Before Aura Towers. A battlefield of titanic corpses, where the sky wept ash. He saw a version of himself locked in battle against a being of light and chains. His blade wasn't forged of steel. It was memory, shaped by will. Every swing didn't cut flesh, it cut fate. He watched himself die. Again and again. Every time, he rose. Burning brighter, falling harder, until the chains bound his arms, sealing his power beneath a mark. The very sigil now branded on his soul. Kale gasped awake. The mark on his hand burned with raw energy. He felt it now, not just a scar, but a key. Zara approached from the shadows, cloak whispering. You've seen it, she said. Kale nodded slowly. I fought the light bearer. Zara's expression darkened. So, you were one of them. A rot bound. Kale looked up. You knew. I suspected. The way your aura reacts to corruption. It doesn't resist. It consumes, integrates. Only the rot ever had that trait. She handed him a vial, filled with liquid aura, dark like oil, glittering with tiny embers. This will keep the echo suppressed. For now, he stared at it, and didn't drink. System notification. Suppression rejected. User declines external stabilization. Passive trait evolved. Ashen resilience. Echo drift slowed. Willpower reinforced. I'm not afraid of it, Kale muttered. If this thing is part of me, I want to understand it. Zara's eyes sharpened. Understanding is what got the first bound slaughtered. Kale met her gaze. I'm not the first. No, she said quietly. But you might be the last. Dungeon gate alert. Tier. Abyssal. Location. Zenith's reach. Unclassified relic activity detected. Estimated threat. Eternal spawn. Signature confirmed. A rift tore through the sky, visible even from the distant mountain ridge. Lyra gripped her staff tighter. That's not a normal gate. Drake squinted toward the crimson fissure pulsing above the skyline. That's not good. Kale didn't wait. He started walking. 3 hours later, Zenith's reach. The wind here howled differently, not just through rock, but through memories. The very stones seemed to whisper. They reached the outer perimeter of the gate and were met by Vale Solane, leader of the Sunspire Vanguard. She stood proud and golden, her aura like a radiant blade, light condensed into presence. Arclight, she said coldly. You weren't summoned. I'm not here to answer to you, Kale replied. Vale's eyes narrowed. That aura, it's infected. Drake stepped between them, voice dripping mockery. Relax, Goldenrod. He's only half monster. The useful half. Vale raised her hand, but Zera cut in. We don't have time for power plays. That rift isn't spawning regulars. She handed a scroll to Vale. The Vanguard leader read it once. Her eyes went pale. You're certain? Zera nodded grimly. An eternal spawner. Not just a spawn, a seeder. One that corrupts entire regions. Lyra gasped. Drake grinned. Now we're talking. Kale stepped forward. Open the gate. System notification, relic sync available. Ashbreaker helm plus Soulbrand signature detected. Begin fusion, Y/N. Warning. Fusion may trigger permanent aura trait evolution. Fusion type, domain fusion, Ashgore protocol. Risk, high. Kale selected. Yes. The helm blazed to life, lifting from his back and fusing to his aura core. Flames licked at his skin, but he didn't flinch. The others stared in silence. He wasn't glowing. He was burning. A dark halo of ash swirled above him. What did you do? Lyra whispered. Kale's voice echoed with a second tone beneath it. Not demonic. Not corrupted. Just ancient. I gave the echo what it wanted. A chance to burn again. New trait unlocked. Ashgore form, stage I. Aura regenerates 4x faster inside corrupted domains. All Ashen-type skills deal 50% more damage versus Eternal spawns. Gains passive immunity to low-tier mind effects. Drawback, human affinity reduced. Civilian and non-combatants may instinctively fear the user. Kale turned to the rift. Without waiting for orders, he walked into the abyss, and it whispered his name back. The gate devoured them. No light, no transition, just absence. One moment Kale stepped through a wound in the sky. Then the world snapped into place with a scream of wind and gravity. He landed hard, boots crushing glass like soil beneath his feet. The Zenith Rift wasn't a normal dungeon. It was a dead zone. No sky, no stars, no system notifications. Only an endless, blood-hued wasteland of twisted roots crawling through broken stone like veins. The sun hung low above them, dull, unmoving. A false light bleeding across a dying world. This isn't a dungeon, Lyra murmured, voice trembling. This is a grave. Drake cracked his neck. Then let's wake the corpse. Kale's steps left trails of ember ash as they walked. His Ashgore aura flared in pulses, syncing with the corrupted terrain. The longer he was inside, the more he could feel the world around him, as if the very soil whispered back in pieces of forgotten language. Echoes. He knelt beside a cracked pillar covered in spiraling glyphs. They're not from Arena, Zera said quietly. They're not from any world, Kale replied, tracing the carvings with 2 fingers. This was made before. Before what? Vale asked, eyes narrowing. Before the system. Before order. Before the Eternal War even had names. Kale stood. This place is a Cedar's Garden. System override, aura trace detected. Origin, Cedar class Eternal, Nzyrath, root of unbirth. Threat level, cataclysmic, aura signature bound to environment. Drake groaned. Why do they all have names that sound like diseases? Zera's face was pale. That thing doesn't just corrupt. It plants itself inside the ley lines of a region and feeds. Once it anchors, it births new spawn indefinitely. So we cut the root, Kale said. You don't cut a cedar, Zera whispered. You burn it, seal it, and pray it never remembers you. Kale grinned slightly. Good thing I brought a flame. They traversed deeper into the rift, the terrain pulsing with sick life. Lyra's sun veil aura flickered dimmed. It's draining me, she said through gritted teeth. My healing's getting heavier. This place rejects purity, Zara said. Only corrupted or anchored aura can survive long. Kale's steps never faltered. His aura thrived here. He was no longer resisting the corruption. He was speaking its language. They reached the heart of the rift. A monolithic tree loomed before them, roots bleeding black liquid, branches made of rib-like bone, leaves like razors catching fall sunlight. It pulsed like a heartbeat, and from within the trunk, a voice emerged. Not spoken, not heard, felt. Rot-bound, you still breathe, still burn. Again and again you return, ash-born and blind. You are a mistake carved into time. But mistakes can be corrected. Asterisk. The ground exploded outward. A creature dragged itself from the earth. Taller than any monster Kale had faced, its face split in 4 directions, revealing a mass of twitching eyes and whispering mouths. Its body was shaped like a humanoid fused with the roots of the tree, half-grown and half-rotted. Nzyrath, root of unbirth. Cedar of Realms. Boss battle initiated Cataclysm class. Domain perk. Nzyrath regenerates from any root connection. Severed limbs restore after 30 seconds unless cauterized by divine or ashen tear flame. Kale stepped forward. The others hesitated. You sure you don't want backup this time? Drake asked. Kale didn't answer. His Ashgore form flared, blazing with deep orange light, turning the crimson sky black. Huh. Kale's voice dropped low. A grin pulled at the corner of his lips. What a strong aura. Kale vanished in a flash of ember. His blade met Nzyrath's tendrils mid-swing, slashing through 3 of them in a single arc, the severed roots hissing as they tried to regrow. Soul Scorch, Ignition Arc. His strike ignited the wounds, not with fire, but memory. The roots screamed, writhing as their attempt to regenerate looped endlessly in a burning cycle. He's searing its regeneration, Zara whispered, using the echo to trap the root's identity. Lyra's jaw dropped. That's not possible. That's soul-level warfare. That's Kale, Drake said proudly. Our little nightmare. The cedar retaliated. Spines of bone and root shot from its back, forming tendrils that struck the ground and bloomed into twisted versions of themselves. Miniature spawns crawling with rot. Minions, Vale growled. Of course it has minions. She raised her glaive, light flaring, and charged. The battle split. Kale remained locked with Nzyrath while the others handled the spawn. Zara triggered her Wraith Bell, echoing a death knell that stunned the approaching wave. Drake hurled a pillar of flame, laughing like a lunatic. If I can't burn it, I'll break it. He slammed his gauntlets into the ground, sending an aura shockwave that split the terrain. And if I can't break it, I'll still try. Kale felt the Ashgore tremble, not with pain, with agreement. His echo was watching, feeding, learning. He didn't resist it. He embraced it. Ashen Domain, Blight Pyre. A black flame exploded beneath Nzyrath, forming a ring of pulsing fire. Every time the cedar moved, the flame shifted with it, chained to its steps, forcing it into a burning dance. Kale's blade glowed red-hot. Burnout dash. He vanished, reappeared behind Nzyrath, then above, then below. Each slash wasn't just physical, it carried echoes. Memories of death the cedar had inflicted, thrown back at it with every strike. You remember nothing, the cedar bellowed. You are a vessel of lost wars. Exactly, Kale said, grinning. And that means I know how this ends. System notice, echo saturation threshold breached. Passive skill evolved. Ash Mirror reflects 5% of enemy aura skills as echo backlash. Usable only within corrupted domains. Kale's next strike wasn't his. It was the cedar's, reflected back, inverted, twisted. The tendril lash snapped back toward its own face, tearing through its mass. This is for Soul Maris. Another slash. For the devoured wards. Another strike. For all the bound you buried. Final slash. And for me. The cedar screamed. Its body ruptured. Roots torn from earth, aura flailing. It launched one final attack. a blast of core energy aimed not at Kale, but the others. Zara turned too late. No, Kale shouted. He moved. Faster than thought. Ash erupted. Critical aura transfer. Host shield activated. Status. Critical damage prevented. Soul burn accumulating. The blast struck. Silence. Then, Kale dropped to one knee. Smoke curled from his body. The ash score pulsed erratically. His hand trembled. Zara rushed to his side, kneeling. You shouldn't have done that. Your echo is fraying. Kale smirked weakly. Better me, than you. Then, a seed bloomed in his chest. Black, pulsing, alive. Not all seeds give life. Some devour it. The moment the seeder's final scream faded into dust, the zenith rift began to unravel. Blackened sky peeled away like torn fabric. The crimson roots retracted, shriveling into ash. But Kale didn't see any of it. He was on his knees, clutching his chest. The seed pulsed, embedded where his core beat. Not physically, deeper, in his soul. Kale. Lyra was the first to reach him. Don't move, just breathe, damn it. But it wasn't his lungs that refused to obey. It was something older, something beneath breath. System notice, ash score synchronization failure. Warning, soul burn detected. Foreign entity attached. Cedar echo fragment. Suppressed. Temporary. The seed's not killing him, Zara said, analyzing the glyphs forming along Kale's veins. It's binding to his ash core, leeching off it. Drake's fists clenched. Then rip it out. We can't. Not unless we want to take the core with it. Then take me too, Kale rasped. If I go down, this world follows. His vision blurred, colors fading into muted gray. Voices echoed around him, but none made sense. His body fell backward, slipping into unconsciousness. And the dreams began. In the dream, he stood in an endless field of embers. Each ash particle whispered names he'd never heard. Souls. Fragments of aura long devoured by the cedar. Now part of him. You were the flame-born, said a voice behind him. But even fire must choose what it consumes. He turned. A mirror stood before him. But the reflection wasn't his current form. It was him, eyes sunken, mouth split by shadow, ash leaking from his pores. You'll burn too bright, Kale, it said. You'll forget who you are. Kale stepped closer. Then I'll burn with purpose. He clenched his fist. The reflection shattered. System update, echo integration. Phase 1 complete. New passive skill gained. Blytrude Heart, seed of Nzyrath stored within Ashgore. Provides access to corrupted aura traits, but increases risk of soul burn at high usage. Kale gasped awake. Not in a rift. Not in the infirmary. But in an ancient stone chamber, veins of light etched into every wall like circuitry. The Vanguard's hidden vault. You've been out for 3 days, Vale said, seated across from him. Her gaze was unreadable, something between respect and fear. And when you woke up, the relics started humming. Kale sat up. His body felt wrong. Heavier, yes, but stronger too, as if he wasn't just wielding aura anymore. He was housing something far older. Where are the others? Kale asked, recovering. Zara left to report to the neutral accord. Drake's training. Lyra. Vale paused. She's been quiet. Spends her time in the garden. Alone. Kale's brows drew together. What happened? She saw what you did. What you became. Vale's voice dropped. And what you're becoming. Kale stood, wobbling slightly. He looked at his palm, black lines trailing down his wrist like root scars. He clenched it into a fist. She deserves answers. He found Lyra surrounded by light flowers, plants that only bloomed to celestial aura. She wasn't healing them. She was watching them die. They wither when I touch them now, she said without turning. Because of the rift. Because of what I had to do to survive it. Kale stayed silent. You absorbed the cedar, she continued. You let it in. I didn't have a choice. Didn't you? She turned, eyes glimmering. Or did the Ashgore want it all along? Kale stepped forward. It's still me, Lyra. That's what I'm afraid of. A beat passed. If you lose yourself, she whispered, I will be the one to stop you. Kale nodded, the ghost of a grin on his lips. Then you better train harder. Later that night, he stood alone before the Ash Forge, the place where relics were reforged by awakened wielders. Drake joined him uninvited. Gonna turn that black tumor in your chest into a weapon? Might as well, Kale said. Everything else in my life already has. The forge flared as he held out his broken blade. Ash swirled. The black root in his chest pulsed, and the sword changed. Relic evolution initiated. New relic. Ashen bloom. Type. Adaptive blade. Grows stronger with enemy aura absorbed. Can shift form during combat. Stores 1 aura echo per kill. Looks good on you, Drake said. Like a curse you chose. Maybe I did, Kale said. You still planning to go after the other Eternals? Kale's eyes glowed faintly. The cedar was just a prelude. What's next? Kale turned toward the northern stars. The hollow Fong of Noctheron. That thing eats aura users, Drake said, raising a brow. You sure? Kale just smiled. Let's see if it likes the taste of ash. You fear monsters? Try hearing them pray. The marsh stank of sulfur and decay. Each step squelched in black water, riddled with bones long forgotten. Mist slithered around Kale and Drake like living silk. Even the air was laced with aura rot, a corruption that warped the senses and made monsters silent. This was Noctheron, a dungeon field long sealed from the public. Not because it was too dangerous, but because it was too aware. So where's our welcoming committee? Drake muttered, tightening the infernal gauntlets. I haven't punched anything in hours. They're watching us, Kale said. They don't fight head-on. His blade, Ashen Bloom, hummed quietly, its edge twitching toward shadows unseen. I take it back, Drake said. I hate sneaky bastards. The mission was clear. Track the signal of the missing Vanguard scout team. Rumor said they were lured here by Hollow Fong, the eternal spawn born from death and fear. But Kale suspected more. The marsh called to him, just like the rift had. Only this time, it wasn't speaking in whispers. It was chanting. They found a first body an hour in. No wounds, Kale noted. But look at his eyes. Gone, Drake whispered. Like sucked out. His aura flared unconsciously, igniting sparks along the swamp surface. Don't light the water, Kale warned. It feeds on light here. Too late. A rumble answered from beneath. The water parted. No splash, no ripple. Just absence. A massive eel-like creature, skin stitched from armor and bone, lunged out with a mouth shaped like a spiral of teeth. Monster identified. Hollow Maw, spawn of the Fawn. Class, Apex. Aura type, Abyssal Drown. Special, devours aura signatures and mimics the last scream of its prey. Finally, Drake grinned. Something ugly. He launched forward, gauntlets ablaze. The maw met him midair, jaws wide. But Drake's uppercut slammed it sideways into a tree that screamed upon impact. Kale wasn't watching the fight. He was scanning the air. The real enemy wasn't the monster. It was the absence. Drake, it's a lure. The real threat lunged from beneath them. A shadow, a thing with no defined body, just teeth, mist, and the sound of mourning. It latched onto Kale's back like a cloak. Kale! Drake shouted. Kale didn't scream. He breathed. Oh, what a strong aura. Ashen Bloom. Echo Shift. Predator form activated. Trait. Gains shape advantage against enemies with undefined physicality. Kale's blade turned to a black ripple. He stabbed behind him, into the creature's core. But it didn't bleed. It whispered. Join us, Firechild. I'm not yours, Kale growled. And you're not him. He tore the blade upward. The thing unraveled into smoke. The marsh fell quiet again. They made camp in a ruined temple half sunk in a mire. Zara's voice rang through Kale's relay rune later that night. You're closer to the Hollow Fong than expected. It's awake now. What is it? Kale asked. The final fear of dying aura users. When an eminence is devoured, the Fong collects what's left. And now it's hungry again. Kale didn't respond. But inside the Ashgore pulsed. The cedar's echo stirred. And it liked this place. That night, Kale dreamed again. But not of fire. This time, teeth. A spiral of them. Endless. Chewing not just flesh, but concept. He watched a Vanguard scout scream silently as her aura, rank, and even name were devoured. Not killed. Erased. You cannot burn what has no form, the voice echoed. You cannot fight what remembers nothing. Kale stood in the dream, bleeding ash, and smiled. Then I'll teach you what fear remembers. He woke at dawn. Drake was already armored and ready. That thing's close. I can smell it. It doesn't have scent, Kale said. Exactly. They marched into the heart of the marsh, where trees had no leaves and the sky hung like wet paper. And then they saw it, the hollow fawn, or what passed for it, a mass of mouths fused around a central pulsing core of floating eyes and drifting memories. Eternal spawn detected, hollow fawn of Noctheron. Class, Dungeon Lord. Aura type, Dread Echo / Abyssal Maw. Special, Devours Aura. If target is defeated, gains access to their aura signature permanently. That thing's not alive, Drake whispered. No, Kale said. It's what's left of those who weren't. The battle began with silence. No roar, no charge, just a ripple in space, and suddenly Drake vanished. Drake, Kale shouted, but there was no answer. Only the echo of Kale's own voice replying. Kale, I'm not Kale. I'm not Kale. The marsh twisted, memories looping, reversing. Reality bent as the Fong chewed through time. But Kale laughed. You think my past will trap me? The ash core ignited. Ashen Bloom. Domain fusion unlocked. Ashen Requiem. Effect. Creates a burning echo chamber where only Kale's current aura exists. Nullifies memory-based attacks. Burns echoes permanently. Flames erupted. The Fong screeched, the first real sound it made. Kale surged forward, blade burning black and gold, every step erasing the lies around him. He didn't fight the Fong. He erased everything it ever was, until only the final mouth remained. It whispered, "You fear monsters." Kale drove his blade through it. Try hearing them pray. The Fong collapsed into ash, and from it a core, but not aura, a memory. Drake reappeared behind Kale, breathing hard. Was I gone long? Kale handed him the core. You were forgotten, but not anymore. Some relics are made. Others remember themselves. Kale stared into the still glowing core left behind by the hollow Fong. It pulsed softly like a heart beating in silence. Not alive, not aura-infused, but something older. More deliberate. That's not a relic, Drake said, squinting. That's a goddamn scar. Kale didn't answer, because he felt it too. The core wasn't meant to be taken. It was meant to lure. System update. Memory forged core identified. Status. Sealed echo relic. Requires ashen adaptation to bind. Warning. Forging this relic will bind the user to the Forgotten tier. Proceed? Kale's fingers twitched. Forgotten tier? He hadn't seen that classification before. He tapped into the ash core's pulse, letting the ember veins inside him flare. Show me its memory. The core obeyed, and Kale's mind was swallowed whole. Flashback. The first vanguard. He stood inside someone else's skin. A woman, tall, radiant, wielding twin blades of searing light. Vale Solane, leader of the original Sunspire Vanguard. She stood before the hollow Fong, but it was smaller than, barely formed. Don't give it a name, she said to her team. Names make it real. She charged, her aura blazing gold. The Fong whispered. Half her squad forgot how to fight. The other half forgot why. Vale didn't. She stabbed it in the mouth, shouting a name Kale hadn't heard before. I claim you in the name of the crown of memory. The Fong screamed. And Kale saw it. The crown. Not an object. A concept. The ability to forge relics from what should never be remembered. Kale gasped as the vision ended. You good? Drake asked. Kale nodded slowly, eyes still glowing faintly from the memory trace. I think I know how Vale sealed the Fong. How? Kale held the core tightly. She didn't just fight it. She turned its past into a weapon. New mechanic unlocked. Memory forging. Relics can now be forged using memory cores from Apex or Eternal class enemies. Forged relics are unique, unstable, and evolve based on the user's aura type and dominant emotion during the memory fusion. You're going to forge that thing, aren't you? Drake asked, raising a brow. Not yet, Kale said. We need someone who understands memory-bound aura tech. You're thinking Zera. Yeah. They returned to the edge of the marsh days later. Zara was already waiting, leaning against a crumbling obelisk, cloaked in her usual haze of mist, bell chiming lightly on her wrist. "So," she said, eyeing the core, "you brought me a living curse." "Sweet. I need to know how to bind it," Kale said, "without losing myself." "You don't," Zara said flatly. "Memory-forged relics want to rewrite you. The moment you fuse it, you're letting it decide part of who you are." Drake chuckled. "And that's different from our current path, how?" Zara tossed him a small black vial. "Drink this before you attempt a fusion. It'll stabilize your ash core long enough to choose the emotion that locks the relic's form." Kale took the vial, staring at it. "What happens if I choose the wrong one?" "Then you forge a crown that remembers your weakest self." Later that night, Kale stood alone by a hollowed-out shrine. He uncapped the vial. His ash core pulsed as the memory core floated in front of him. Visions flickered, Lyra's desperate healing in the rift, Drake's reckless laughter during their last battle, Zara's cold stare, always watching too closely, his brother's back as he walked away, leaving Kale to burn alone. The cedar's dying words echoing still, "Let the ash decide." He chose resolve, not anger, not hope, resolve to stand alone, if needed. He downed the vial. The core snapped open. Relic forged. Memory forged crown. Form I. Ash King's burden. Type. Echo relic. Effect 1. Grants resistance to memory-affecting aura attacks. Effect 2. Can store one forgotten skill per battle. A technique used once, then erased. Effect 3. Ashen Pulse Echo. Kale's next aura adaptation automatically learns the enemy's dominant trait. Kale staggered slightly as the crown, not physical, but etched into his aura, settled over his being. Zara stood silently, watching. "So," she said, "how much of you is still in there?" Kale looked up, eyes burning silver over black. "Enough." "Good," Zara said, "because the next eternal spawn you face won't be a memory eater." "What then?" She smiled faintly. "A memory maker. Somewhere far from the marsh, in the floating library city of Myratha's Rest, a scholar watched his runes flicker violently. A new crown has awakened." He stood, adjusting gloves inscribed with glyphs that pulsed like veins. "And the past is no longer buried." He turned. The wall behind him was covered in portraits. Every wielder who had ever tried to forge memory. All of them dead, except the last. Kale Arclight. Let's see if you last longer than the rest. If memory can be forged, then history can be rewritten. The wind was sharp at Myratha's Rest. Not in temperature, but in pressure, air rippling with layered enchantments that filtered intrusions, aura pulses, even intent. You didn't just enter Myratha's Rest. You were weighed by it. Kale could feel the tension the moment he stepped onto the outer bridge. Around him, suspended spires floated like broken quills in an ink-stained sky. Pages, real, spectral, burning, frozen, drifted through the air. Each was a memory sealed in script, tethered to the library's central heart. Lyra stepped forward cautiously. "This place feels wrong. Like every step is being written before we take it." Zara nodded, appearing from the mist behind them. "Because it is. Welcome to the city where history edits you." Drake cracked his knuckles, unimpressed. "Great. Another place that thinks it can scare me with a floating book." Kale ignored them. His focus was locked on the figure approaching from the main hall. Robes swirling like spilled ink, eyes glowing with script instead of pupils. The scribe of bleeding pages. Kale had seen his portrait in the memory crown's flash. He hadn't aged a day. "You carry a stolen memory," the scribe said, voice calm but layered with power. "And forge a relic from it. That alone makes you a threat." Kale stood still. "I didn't steal anything. I survived it. You remembered it. That's worse. Do you understand what that crown truly is?" Zara answered before Kale could speak. "A relic of intent, not weaponry." The scribe turned toward her. "Zara Valeth, Whisperborn, half-eternal. You should have died with your mother." Silence fell. Lyra looked at Zara in shock. Drake's eyes narrowed, but Zara smiled. "You're still bitter the mist took your tongue in that war, aren't you?" Kale stepped forward, his aura subtly flaring. I didn't come to dig up the past. I came for the truth. The truth. The scribe raised a hand. Then read it yourself. A book unfolded midair. Not held. Not opened. It bloomed like a wound reopening. Words danced across its surface. Ink twisted into imagery. Kale saw it. The forging of the first memory crown. Vale Solane, locked in battle with an eternal. The first collapse, when dungeons broke the sky itself. And deeper still, a name buried in the margins. His own, not a footnote. A cause. The book snapped shut. Kale reeled from it, sweat beading on his forehead. That vision, it wasn't a prophecy. It was a warning. You caused the collapse, the scribe said. Not now. Not yet. But your aura, your path, your evolution, it leads there. Again, Lyra looked at Kale, shaken. That can't be true. He's trying to stop the Eternals. He becomes one, the scribe replied simply. The last. The worst. Kale's voice came low. Cold. Then tell me how to stop it. The scribe gestured, and the pages floating above them stilled. You must break the chain of memory. Find the archivist of the abyss. She keeps the tethered names, the ones fated to fall. And where is she? Zara answered for him. Noctheron Marsh, where memory rots. Kale turned away. He didn't need to say it. They were going, but the scribe wasn't finished. Kale Arclight, he called, voice echoing with finality. You wear a relic that remembers your will. If that will ever falters, even once, the crown will rewrite your soul. Kale didn't look back. He just muttered the words that now defined his path. Oh, what a strong aura. Meanwhile, in the Forgotten Tower, Carrie's nitrain stood at the base of a spiraling ruin, cloak torn, one eye bandaged. He gazed up at the mural carved in shifting stone. Kale's face, burning, crowned, worshipped, or feared. Behind him, 12 silhouettes stirred. The Dead 11, discarded champions of the eternal trials. Carrie's was the last survivor, the only one who refused ascension. He stared at Kale's image, expression unreadable. You better not fall before I reach you, little brother. Some places don't forget. They wait. The sky dimmed unnaturally the moment they crossed into Noctheron Marsh. Clouds hung like morning veils, and the sun became a rumor. Its light diluted into a perpetual twilight. The air was thick, not just with fog, but with memory. It clung to the skin, sank into the lungs, whispered in the back of the mind. Lyra shivered despite her celestial aura. This place feels diseased. Drake flicked fire from his fingertips, but the flame dimmed as if embarrassed to burn here. Yeah, marshland's cursed. You can smell it. Zara stepped forward, her eyes half-lidded. Here, her aura shimmered like it belonged. It's not cursed. It's remembering. Kale stayed silent, scanning the terrain. Cracked stone walkways wound through blackened water. Ancient lanterns hung on skeletal trees, each glowing faintly with trapped souls. Aura echoes left behind by those who died inside the swamp. It was here the archivist of the abyss hid, the one who cataloged names bound to doom. And Kale needed her. As they moved deeper into the marsh, the fog thickened. Then came the voices. Faint. Familiar. Lyra heard a child scream. She froze. Drake heard his own laughter, twisted, distorted. Kale heard nothing. Until suddenly, he did. A voice he hadn't heard since he buried it in silence. Kale, run. It was his brother's voice. Drake Arclight. Kale stopped mid-step. His fingers twitched, drawing the ashen veil unconsciously. Lyra turned to him, worried. What did you hear? Something I already escaped, he muttered. Let's keep moving. The deeper they went, the more reality blurred. Time stuttered. Zara left markings, small silver threads, to keep their path from looping, but even those began to fray. And then, without warning, they found her. Or rather, she found them. A ripple in the water, a shadow beneath the roots. And then she rose. She was tall, unnaturally so, her face veiled in moth wings and stitched silk. Where her mouth should have been was a book sewn shut. Pages peeled off her arms like skin. The archivist of the abyss. She spoke not with a voice, but with aura, projected directly into their minds. Who seeks their forgotten name? Kale stepped forward. I do. Her head tilted. Pages fluttered, and the swamp responded. Suddenly, the water shifted, revealing images beneath the surface. Cale's battles, Lyra's mercy, Drake's rage, Zera's secrets. Memory is currency, the archivist intoned. What will you trade for future unbound? Cale clenched his fists. What do you want? A name. She turned to Zera, her true one. Zera didn't flinch. She stared at Cale. If this is the only way, then take it. The archivist extended a tendril of ink-like aura. It touched Zera's chest, and the world paused. Cale saw it, her past. A castle in the mist. A mother screaming. The moment her bloodline was cleaved. And then, Zeraphine of the Abyss born. Her full name. Eternal by lineage. Zera fell to her knees. But the archivist turned to Cale. A page from her body peeled off and floated to him. He caught it. On it, a single phrase burned. Cale Arclight, catalyst of collapse. Cale felt his aura throb. His pulse warped. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he was holding the page or if the page was holding him. The path is wound. You can still cut it, the archivist whispered. But every cut leaves a scar. The fog parted behind her. A gate of bone. A dungeon core hanging upside down, bleeding light into a spiral pit. The next dungeon, the hollow archive. Not just a trial, a reflection. Cale turned to the others. Anyone backing out? Drake grinned. Are you kidding? That place looks like it's begging to be broken. Lyra took a breath, nodded. We follow your lead. Zera stood slowly, eyes distant. No turning back now. Cale stepped through the gate. The hollow archive opened its maw and welcomed them home. In silence, the past does not rest. It screams. The gate sealed behind them with a low, grinding hiss. Inside, the hollow archive breathed. It was no ordinary dungeon. This one pulsed like a lung. Walls made of organic parchment stretched between spires of inkstone. The light was dim, golden, and flickered like candle flame through translucent ceilings lined with moving text. Each step echoed with whispers, some familiar, some foreign. Cale walked first, ashen veil drawn, but not ignited. His presence was steady, but his aura roiled beneath his skin. That parchment from the archivist still burned in his chest like a second heartbeat. Lyra glanced at him from behind. You okay? Cale didn't answer right away. The truth was he wasn't. He had seen his name written in the script of collapse, held the page that tied him to disaster. And yet, some part of him, deep, stubborn, refused to be what fate had written. I'm fine, he replied. Stay close. Drake trudged beside them, infernal gauntlets faintly lit. He was visibly uncomfortable, his aura lashing in bursts. This place is wrong. Not dangerous like the marsh. Wrong like it knows you. Zera, unbothered, was gliding ahead. Because it does. The archive shows what we bury. It's not meant to be conquered. Good, Drake growled. I wasn't planning to conquer it. I'm here to burn it. Cale stopped as the first chamber unfolded before them. A wide, dome-shaped space greeted them. Pillars of obsidian holding up a ceiling painted with 1,000 eyes, each blinking slowly in sequence. Then the whispers stopped. Then the doors behind them vanished. And the eyes began to cry. First trial, reflection chamber. The tears from above hit the floor, glowing on contact. They pooled together, forming a mirror of liquid light. Cale stared at it. The surface shimmered, then shifted. A boy appeared, alone, training with a wooden sword. Drake Arclight stood beside him, older, stricter. He barked commands. The younger Cale bled from his palms. Again, the real Cale said nothing. The vision changed. Cale kneeling in a ruin, holding a dying man's hand. Drake, impaled by an eternal blessed spear. The elder brother's last words barely audible. It should have been me. The water rippled. The younger Cale screamed. The scene turned violent. Cale's aura flared in real time. No, he muttered, voice low. This isn't how it happened. But the archive didn't care. It twisted the memory until Cale stood over his own brother, blade drawn. Why didn't you save him? A voice whispered, not from the illusion, but from inside his mind. Lyra reached for him. Cale. He raised a hand. Don't. His aura exploded. Ash-gray particles scattered through the air, his ashen veil forming jagged streaks across the floor. Then the memory dissolved, scorched by his will. Kale's voice came quiet, but sharp. This dungeon doesn't get to write me. Second trial, the Chorus Isles. They moved on. The next room was worse. A corridor of tall, narrow walls, each engraved with lines of script. Names. Thousands. Tens of thousands. Written in blood. Zara stopped at one. Her fingers trembled. There it was, Zeraphine Valeth. Lyra read it aloud. She who broke the veil and survived. Whisper born half, cursed in full. Zara said nothing. Her eyes shimmered with mist. Behind her, shadows tried to reach out, hands of people she'd left behind. Faces half forgotten. One called her daughter. Another, murderer. Enough, Kale said, stepping in. He slashed through the shadow hands with clean precision. Drake let out a low whistle. Nice to see someone else's ghosts. He reached for one of the walls, then froze. His own name glared back at him. Drake Nor, the broken flame. Underneath it, he burns brightest before betrayal. His gauntlets glowed as rage surged. I haven't betrayed anyone, he snarled. Zara looked at him. Not yet. He turned, about to strike, but Kale caught his wrist mid-motion. Don't give the archive what it wants. Their auras crackled, fire and ash ready to clash. But the tension broke when Lyra's voice rang out. Look, ahead. The corridor ended in a massive sealed door. Runes of light glowed around its edges. It read, to rewrite fate, spill memory. Third trial, the memory well. The door opened into a circular chamber, the centerpiece of which was a deep well filled with golden ink. Around it, stone pedestals held 3 aura cores, each pulsing with different light. Lyra approached one. It's mine, she whispered. The aura pulsing inside was celestial light. Pure, warm, but then the glow darkened. Lyra saw herself, years ahead, wounded, surrounded by corpses, healing no one. I don't want to see this. Kale stepped beside her. This is a test, not the future. Zara moved to her pedestal. Hers shimmered with mist. Faint, flickering, but the vision it showed was powerful. Her holding Kale's broken body, smiling, then whispering, it had to be this way. Zara blinked it away. The archive loves showing lies. Don't let it become prophecy. Kale finally stepped to his own. The aura was not just ashen. It was warped, a fusion of flame, mist, and celestial. His future self had taken in the traits of all those he defeated, evolved beyond classification. The projection showed a throne of relics, a continent in ruin. Kale stood alone, eyes empty. He didn't flinch. I won't let that happen. The well spoke, a voice ancient, genderless, beyond time. Then spill a memory, and prove it. Kale closed his eyes, then lowered a hand into the well. He gave it his first kill. The moment he ended a creature's life in the ember deep. Not just the act, but the emotion, the guilt, the thrill, the fear. The well accepted it. The dungeon rumbled. The path opened again. Beyond the chamber was the final stretch. No illusions now. Just silence. The kind that meant something terrible was waiting. At the far end stood a lone figure, hooded, cloaked, and humming. Its back turned. Then it spoke, but in Kale's voice. Ah, what a strong aura. Kale drew his blade instantly. The others reacted too, but froze when the figure turned. It was Kale, or at least a version of him. Eyes hollow, aura burning with dark ash, and around his neck, a memory-forged crown, cracked and bleeding. The archive had manifested his possible future. Now he had to fight it. The hollow archive had fallen silent in the wake of Kale's victory. The battle against his own twisted reflection left him shaken, but not defeated. His body ached, his muscles sore from the relentless combat, but his mind was sharper than ever. The illusion had been torn apart, but Kale knew that what lay beyond this chamber was no mere physical test. It was something far greater. As he stood before the shattered remnants of the corrupted Kale, the air in the archive thickened. The whispers that had been so constant now faded into an eerie stillness. But that stillness was fleeting. In the distance, a low, rumbling growl echoed from deep within the dungeon's heart. Zara, ever watchful, narrowed her eyes. Something's coming. Drake cracked his knuckles, eyes sparkling with excitement. If it's something big, I'm ready to burn it down. Lyra, her hands still glowing faintly from healing, hesitated. We should prepare. This dungeon isn't just about fighting. It's about understanding its will. We've passed one test, but the true trial is still ahead. Kale stared ahead, his ashen veil flickering at the edges of his aura. He was exhausted, but the will to press forward burned brighter than ever. The dungeon had tested him, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But the true test was what he was willing to sacrifice to reach the end. We move forward, Kale said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of resolve. No more running from the truth. No matter what lies ahead, we face it. Lyra nodded, a soft smile on her lips, though there was worry in her eyes. Just be careful. The system doesn't give you anything without a price. The descent into the depths. The further they ventured into the hollow archive, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The walls were lined with ancient runes, their dark energy pulsing in time with Kale's own heartbeat. It was as if the very dungeon itself was alive, breathing, watching. The group walked in tense silence, each of them aware that the dungeon wasn't just a test of power. It was a test of everything they believed in. Kale, Lyra said quietly as they walked, you know that this place is more than just trials, right? It's pulling on something deeper inside of you, something that wants to be unlocked. What is it that you're truly searching for? Kale didn't answer immediately. He had thought about that question before, but now, standing at the edge of the unknown, it felt more significant than ever. His journey had always been about survival, about strength, but somewhere along the way, it had become more. I'm searching for the truth, Kale said finally, his voice low. The truth about the world and myself. Zara gave a soft chuckle from behind them. Typical. Even in the face of a dungeon that could kill you, you're looking for answers. You don't get it, Kale said, turning to face her. This isn't just about power anymore. It's about understanding everything that's been hidden from us. Why we're here, why we fight, and what happens when you face the darkness of this world head-on. The eye of eternity. They reached the final chamber, an immense, cavernous space that stretched as far as the eye could see. At its center stood a massive structure, an enormous, obsidian-like pillar wrapped in ancient chains. At the top of the pillar, a glowing orb pulsed with unnatural light, its aura nearly suffocating. That's it, Zara said, her voice almost reverent. The eye of eternity. The heart of the archive, Lyra added softly, her gaze fixed on the orb. The source of everything. Kale stepped forward, his boots echoing in the vast emptiness. The air was thick with the weight of time itself. The eye pulsed with a rhythmic, almost hypnotic energy. It felt as if it was pulling at his very soul. This is where it all ends, Kale said, his hand tightening on the hilt of his sword. A voice, low and ancient, echoed throughout the chamber. You have come far, Kale Arclight. The voice was deep, resonating from all around them. It was not a voice of flesh, but of something far older. But do you truly understand what you seek? Kale froze, his heart hammering in his chest. The voice seemed to seep into his very being, echoing within him. I seek the truth, Kale said, his voice firm, and I will uncover it, no matter the cost. The truth is not for the unworthy, the voice replied. The truth is reserved for those who can wield it without breaking. The eye sees all, but it demands a sacrifice. Are you willing to pay the price? Kale's eyes narrowed. I've already sacrificed enough. I've lost people, brothers, friends. But I haven't lost myself. Not yet. The orb in the center of the chamber began to glow brighter, and the chains surrounding it rattled ominously. The floor beneath Kale's feet began to crack, as if the dungeon itself was waking up, responding to his declaration. Very well, the voice intoned. Then you must prove your worth. Without warning, the chamber erupted in a burst of energy. The ground trembled violently, and from the cracks in the stone, figures began to emerge, beasts of darkness, their forms shifting between reality and nightmare. Kale raised his sword, the ashen veil enveloping him in a protective mantle of flame and shadow. He could feel the aura of these creatures. They were powerful, far beyond the strength of any monsters they had faced before. The dungeon was not just testing his strength, but his will to fight against the tide of darkness. Zera's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to fight as one, Kale. Don't let the darkness consume you." Drake was already charging forward, his infernal gauntlets blazing with fire. "Hell yeah, let's burn him all down." Lyra stepped up beside Kale, her healing aura ready to assist. "We've got this. Just don't forget what you're fighting for." The first of the dark creatures lunged at Kale, its maw filled with jagged teeth. Kale's blade met it with a resounding crash, the ashen veil flaring as he cleaved through the monster's body. The creature disintegrated into a pile of ash, but more followed, tens, then hundreds of them, all surging toward him like an unstoppable tide. Kale's heart raced, but his resolve was unwavering. The fight had only just begun. Every truth is but a shard of a greater reality. What you learn may free you, but it may also shackle you. The battle raged on, the air thick with the clash of metal, the crackle of fire, and the roar of the creatures that poured from the abyss. Kale's sword cut through the monsters with brutal precision, the ashen veil protecting him, absorbing the heat and energy of every strike. Yet for every beast he slew, two more emerged, each more terrifying than the last. Lyra's celestial light flared brightly beside him, her aura forming protective shields and healing barriers as she kept the group's defenses intact. Drake's infernal gauntlets blazed like twin suns, tearing through the dark creatures with ferocious ease, while Zera stood at the rear, her cursed mist swirling around her like a phantom cloak, each wisp of smoke slicing through the air and catching the monsters off guard. But Kale was growing tired. His strength, though enhanced by the ashen veil, was not infinite. Each swing of his blade felt heavier, his movements slower. The sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. "We can't keep this up," Lyra shouted, her voice tinged with panic as another wave of monsters surged forward. Kale grit his teeth, his eyes burning with determination. "We don't stop. Not until we're through." The monsters closed in, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if they would be overwhelmed. But then something changed. The eye of eternity, the glowing orb at the heart of the chamber, pulsed violently. The chains binding it rattled and snapped. A piercing light erupted from the orb, blinding everything in its path. The creatures, once so relentless, halted in their tracks, their dark forms writhing in agony as the light washed over them. Kale shielded his eyes, heart pounding in his chest. This was no ordinary light. It wasn't just a force of energy, it was the very essence of truth itself. A force so pure and overwhelming that it threatened to tear apart everything in its wake. "This is it," Zera murmured, her voice barely audible over the deafening hum of the light. The final test, the price of truth. The light grew brighter, more intense. And then a voice, deep, ancient, and resonant, echoed through the chamber once more. "Kale Arclight, you stand at the precipice of all that you have sought. But know this, the truth comes at a cost. To possess the knowledge of the eye is to embrace the burden of eternity itself." Kale's breath hitched. The weight of the words pressed upon him, a heavy burden that he could feel settling in his chest. His heart raced, but his resolve remained unshaken. "I've already sacrificed too much to turn back now," Kale said, his voice firm. "I've come this far to learn the truth. Whatever the cost, I will bear it." The orb flashed even brighter, and the floor beneath them cracked open. The dark creatures that had been frozen by the light now crumbled into dust, their forms disintegrating into nothingness. The dungeon itself seemed to tremble as the final challenge approached, the trial of eternity. Suddenly, the light began to coalesce, forming a towering figure in the center of the chamber. It was a being of light and shadow, its form shifting and fluid, like the embodiment of truth itself. It was both magnificent and terrifying, a figure that seemed to transcend time and space. "You seek the truth," the figure spoke, its voice an echo of the dungeon itself. "But are you prepared to face it?" Kale stepped forward, his body still sore from the previous battle, but his determination unwavering. "I am. Whatever it takes." The figure's glowing eyes narrowed, and the air around them grew colder. The eye of eternity pulsed again, sending a shockwave of energy through the chamber. The floor beneath Kale's feet cracked open, revealing a vast abyss. "The truth you seek is not without consequence. In order to wield it, you must face the truth of your own existence." Before Kale could respond, the world around him shifted. The chamber, the dungeon, everything seemed to vanish. He found himself standing on the edge of a precipice, staring out into a void that stretched into infinity. At the edge of the void stood a figure. It was Kale, no, not quite. This was a version of Kale, but older, more battle-worn, his eyes filled with an ancient sorrow. This other Kale's aura was different, darker, more intense. It was as if he had become something more or something less. "Who are you?" Kale asked, his voice echoing in the emptiness. The figure smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I am what you will become. I am your future, Kale Arclight, and I am the one who embraced the truth, no matter the cost." Kale's heart skipped a beat. What? What happened to you?" The figure's smile widened, but it was filled with pain. "I sought the truth, just as you do, but I paid the price. The eye of eternity gave me power, but it also shattered me. I became something beyond human, beyond mortal comprehension. The truth, it will consume you, Kale. It will break you." "No," Kale said, shaking his head. "I won't let that happen." "You will," the figure whispered. "You must. It is your fate, the choice." The world around Kale began to shift again. The figure, his future self, began to fade into the darkness. "The truth is a burden, Kale, and once you know it, you will never be the same again. You cannot unsee what has been revealed." The darkness closed in around Kale, but he stood firm, his heart still resolute. "I will carry whatever burden the truth brings," Kale said, his voice ringing with conviction. "I won't back down. Not now, not ever." With a final burst of will, Kale thrust his sword forward, his ashen veil flaring to life around him. The darkness recoiled, and the figure vanished, leaving only the vast abyss. And then, as if in response to Kale's defiance, the eye of eternity's light intensified. The chamber began to shake violently, as though the very foundation of reality was breaking apart. "Very well," the voice boomed, now tinged with something darker. "You have chosen. The truth is yours to wield. But know this, the eye sees all, and will never let you forget what you have learned." The light reached its zenith, and for a moment, Kale felt as though he was being torn apart, his very soul being pulled into the void. But then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The light faded, the chaos ceased, and Kale found himself standing alone in the chamber, the eye of eternity now dim and lifeless. The truth revealed. Kale stood in stunned silence, his breath ragged as he took in the enormity of what had just happened. The truth, it had been revealed. But what had it cost him? He didn't know. Not yet. Lyra, Drake, and Zara slowly stepped forward, their expressions a mix of concern and awe. "What happened?" Lyra asked softly, her eyes scanning Kale's face. Kale didn't answer immediately. He couldn't. The weight of the truth was still settling in, a heavy burden that threatened to crush him. I don't know," Kale said, his voice shaky. "But I've seen something. And now everything changes. The future is not a path to walk. It is a storm to endure. And we are all but vessels, tossed in the winds of fate." The eye of eternity was silent now, its once blinding glow dimming to a faint, pulsing light, like the last embers of a dying star. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Kale stood frozen, the weight of the truth crushing him from all sides. The revelations he'd seen in that moment, the truth of his future, were unbearable. It was a truth that would tear everything apart. Lyra's hand reached out, her fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against his arm. Kale, what happened? What did you see? Kale remained still, as if lost in the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. The images were fragmented, jumbled. His future self, the horrors of the Eternals, the price he was destined to pay. It was too much to grasp all at once. I saw. Kale's voice trembled, his throat tight. I saw what I could become, what I will become. Drake stepped closer, his fiery aura flaring briefly before he reined it in, his usual grin replaced with a rare solemnity. And? Don't leave us hanging, Kale. You've seen the future. So what happens next? Kale turned slowly to face his friends, his eyes hollow, as if they had seen far too much for anyone to comprehend. It's not just the future I saw, he whispered, his voice barely audible, but it carried the weight of something far heavier. It's the truth about everything, about the Eye, the Eternals, and about me. He paused, as if steeling himself of the words. The truth is, I'm not just meant to be their weapon. I am one of them. At least, I will be. Silence fell over the group. Lyra's grip on his arm tightened in a desperate attempt to anchor him, while Drake's usual bravado faltered for the first time Kale could remember. Zara, who had been eerily silent, only took a step back, her expression unreadable. I don't understand, Lyra said, her voice shaking, her eyes wide with disbelief. What do you mean you're one of them? You're human, Kale. You're not like them. Kale shook his head slowly, his eyes darkening with a deep, unsettling understanding. I'm not human anymore, Lyra. I'm something else now. Something that transcends humanity. I'm a hybrid of the Eternals. The Eye didn't just show me the future. It revealed the truth of my origin. I was made to be their successor, their heir. Drake's eyes widened, the fire in his aura flickering wildly as the weight of Kale's words settled in. You're telling me you're becoming one of those godlike monsters? The Eternals? Kale nodded, his expression grim. I can't stop it. It's in my blood now. The truth of the Eye, it's already changing me. Slowly, but it's happening. The unraveling. As Kale spoke, the chamber around them seemed to respond, as if it were alive. The walls groaned under the strain, and the floor trembled beneath their feet, an ancient power pulsing through the very stone. The Eye of Eternity had given Kale the truth, but it was also draining something from him, his humanity, his soul. Zara, ever the observer, stepped forward, her gaze cold as ice. This is what the Eye does. It doesn't just show you the truth, it binds you to it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And the consequences. She paused, her eyes flickering to Kale with a mix of pity and something else. Understanding, perhaps. You're already changing, Kale. You can feel it, can't you? Kale's chest tightened as he clenched his fists, the power swirling within him. He could feel it, the ashen veil growing stronger, twisting into something darker. Something that was no longer his own. I can feel it, he whispered, his voice thick with fear. The power. It's pulling at me, changing me into something I don't want to be. I don't want to become like them, Kale said, his voice raw, filled with a desperate plea. I don't want to be an Eternal, but it's happening anyway. Then stop it, Drake shouted, his voice cracking with frustration. If you don't want this, then fight back. You've always fought. Don't let this power swallow you whole. But Kale knew it wasn't that simple. The power of the Eternals wasn't something he could fight with will alone. It was inevitable, a fate set in motion long before he even knew of the Eye's existence. The more I fight it, Kale murmured, his voice hollow, the stronger it becomes. The more I resist, the more I become a part of it. I don't know how long I can hold on. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes full of sorrow, but her voice soft with conviction. Kale, you've always been strong. You can control this. You've always controlled your aura. Don't let the truth define you. You're more than this. Kale looked at her, the weight of her words striking him harder than anything else. She had always believed in him. He had always believed in himself, too. But now, with this truth, could he still hold on to that? I don't know if I can anymore, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. A glimmer of hope. Just then, a low rumble echoed through the chamber, rattling the very foundations of the dungeon. The walls cracked, the ground split open beneath them, and the eye of eternity pulsed again, brighter than before, feeding off the chaos within Kale. The dungeon seemed to come alive, reacting to his inner turmoil, pushing him toward a destiny he couldn't escape. Zara's eyes narrowed, her voice cold but sharp. It's reacting to you, Kale. The eye. It's feeding on your inner turmoil. It's pushing you toward your destiny, whether you want it or not. Kale gritted his teeth, his body trembling with the strain. He couldn't escape it. He couldn't escape his fate. The more he fought, the more the dungeon responded, as if it were a living entity that thrived on his struggle. But then something inside him snapped. No, Kale said, his voice firm, unwavering. I'm not going to let it control me. I will not become what they want me to be. I will carve my own fate. The ground around him cracked open as Kale's aura flared to life, more intense than ever. The ashen veil swirled violently around him, a maelstrom of fire and shadow, as if the very essence of his power was rebelling against the influence of the eye. His aura surged with a force that pushed back against the pull of the future self who had once warned him of the consequences of his choices. The figure of his future self reappeared in front of him, standing like a specter, its eyes glowing with an ancient, implacable wisdom. You cannot outrun your fate, it said, its voice deep and resonant, carrying the weight of centuries. The truth is not something you can ignore, Kale. It is in your blood. It is what you are. I will make my fate, Kale declared, his voice rising into a roar. I'll choose who I become. Not the eye, not the Eternals. Me. With a final, explosive surge of power, Kale's aura erupted outward, tearing through the dungeon. The ground cracked, the air rippled, and the eye of eternity shattered with a deafening crash. The truth had been revealed, but Kale was done being its slave. He had made his choice. Sometimes, the things we fear the most are the ones that will set us free, and the hardest battles are often fought within. The dungeon was silent, the oppressive hum of the eye of eternity now nothing more than a distant echo. The walls had cracked and splintered from the force of Kale's outburst, and the floor beneath their feet had been rent asunder. A deep, cold stillness hung in the air, the remnants of the eye's power dissipating like smoke in the wind. Kale stood at the center of it all, his breathing heavy, his body trembling with the aftermath of the intense surge of power. The ashen veil still swirled around him, flickering like a flame on the verge of going out, but now it had changed. The raw intensity of it was gone, replaced by a quiet, focused energy that felt different, more controlled, more stable. He had done it. For the first time in his life, he had wrestled with his fate and won. At least, that's what he told himself. Lyra was the first to move, her hand reaching for Kale's arm, her touch warm and comforting against the cold of the dungeon's remains. Kale, you did it, she said softly, her voice laced with a mixture of relief and awe. Kale didn't reply immediately. He could feel the weight of her gaze on him, but his thoughts were elsewhere. The truth, the real truth, was still settling in his mind. He had confronted the eye, but the fragments of his future still lingered, like splinters buried deep within him. I don't know if I did, Kale finally murmured, his voice strained. It feels like I've only just begun to understand what's happening to me. Drake, who had been watching quietly from the sidelines, stepped forward. His usual smirk had been replaced with a rare seriousness. You stood your ground, Kale. That's more than most people could do. You didn't let the eye control you. Whatever happens next, you've already proven that you're not just some puppet in this game. Kale turned to face Drake, and for a moment, their eyes met. No mockery, no rivalry, just understanding. Kale had always seen Drake as a chaotic force, a person driven by instinct and the thrill of battle. But there was a respect there now, something deeper than words could explain. I'm not sure it's over, though, Kale said, his voice heavy. I can feel it inside me. This pull, this power that's growing stronger with every passing second. I can't stop it, and I don't know if I want it anymore. But I don't know how to control it either. Zara, who had been standing in the shadows, watching from a distance, finally spoke up. Control, she repeated, her voice cool and detached as always. Kale, you can't control what's happening to you. You can only embrace it or reject it entirely. The moment you try to fight the truth, you sealed your fate. The question now is whether you can live with the consequences. Kale's heart clenched at her words. Embrace or reject. It seemed like an impossible choice. It was hard enough accepting what he had become, what he was destined to be. How could he possibly embrace something that terrified him to his core? You're right, he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. I can't just turn my back on this. I can't undo what's been done, but I can't let it define me either. Zara's lips curled into something between a smile and a smirk. Good, because you're no longer just a puppet, Kale. You're a force, and the world will soon know it. The burden of truth. The air in the dungeon felt heavy now, thick with the lingering presence of the eye's power. Kale couldn't help but feel its pull, its cold, indifferent weight pressing down on him. The truth that had been revealed, the truth about his origins, his power, and his destiny, was something that could never be undone. But there was more to it, wasn't there? There always was. What would it mean to be something like the Eternals? Could he wield such power and still remain himself? Could he protect the people he cared about? Or would the very thing that made him stronger also be the thing that destroyed him? Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts, soft but insistent. Kale, you're not alone in this. We're with you. Whatever happens, we'll fight alongside you. He looked at her then, really looked at her. She had always been there, a steadfast light in the darkness, a beacon of hope when the world seemed too harsh. But now, more than ever, Kale wondered if he was the one who needed saving, or if perhaps it was the world that needed saving from him. I don't know how much longer I can keep going like this, Kale confessed, his voice quiet but filled with a deep, raw emotion. The more I resist this power, the more it consumes me. But if I give in completely, if I embrace what I'm becoming, I don't know what that will mean. I don't know if I can live with myself. Lyra's eyes softened, and she reached for his hand, her grip gentle but firm. Kale, you're who you choose to be. You're not the monster the eye wants you to be. You're not the one in the vision. You're you. Kale didn't know how to respond to that. He had always prided himself on his strength, on his ability to push forward no matter the cost. But now, it felt like the very thing he had always fought against was growing inside him, a darkness that threatened to take everything he had fought for. Drake let out a low chuckle, breaking the tension in the room. Well, whatever happens next, it's going to be one hell of a ride. And you know I'm in for the chaos. Kale managed a small, almost bitter smile. I'm not sure chaos is what we need right now. Zara, who had been silent for a while, finally spoke again. Then what do you need, Kale? Kale looked at her, his gaze unwavering. I need to know who I am, not what I'm supposed to become, not what the eye wants me to be. I need to find my own path, and that means confronting what's inside me, no matter how dark or dangerous it is. Lyra's smile was soft, but full of conviction. We'll help you, all of us. You don't have to face this alone. Kale looked around at his allies, the people who had stood by him through thick and thin. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope in his chest. The unseen path. But even as hope stirred within him, Kale knew the road ahead would not be easy. The eye of eternity may have shattered, but the path it had set him on was far from over. The Eternals were still out there, waiting, watching. And whatever destiny the eye had shown him, whatever it had planned for him, was still there, lurking in the shadows. Kale took a deep breath, feeling the power within him stir once again, a reminder of what he had become, of what he was still becoming. But this time, he wouldn't let it define him. He would choose who he became. And with that thought, Kale Arclight stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that the only thing more dangerous than the monsters he fought were the ones inside him. The wind howled through the fractured ruins of the dungeon, sweeping up broken stones and ash like whispers of a battle barely won. Kale stood at the edge of the collapsed platform, watching as the last of the Eye of Eternity's influence faded into the void. The silence that followed was heavy, not peaceful, but tense, like the world itself was holding its breath. His shoulders were tense, his hands still shaking. He didn't feel victorious, just tired. Lyra approached him quietly, her footsteps echoing softly in the dust. She didn't say anything at first. She didn't need to. Everything's changed, Cale finally said, his voice hoarse. I can feel it, like something inside me broke or woke up. Lyra's eyes searched his face, trying to read between the cracks he kept hidden from the world. You think this is the beginning of the end? I don't know. He closed his eyes. It doesn't feel like a beginning. Feels more like I lost something I didn't even know I had. She stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on his forearm. Cale, you didn't lose anything. You chose to fight back. That still matters. I looked into the eye, Lyra. His gaze met hers, raw and exposed. I saw what I could become. It wasn't me. It was a monster in my skin. But you're not that, she insisted. That version of you. It's not real. It's fear. It's manipulation. It felt real. Cale's voice cracked. And what scares me is part of me didn't hate it. The words hung in the air like a confession no one wanted to hear. She didn't flinch. She didn't let go. Then fight that part, she whispered. With us. With me. Drake leaned against a chunk of debris nearby, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. You think fear makes you weak? He asked, voice gruff. You think I don't wake up wondering if the fire in me is going to burn everything down one day? Cale blinked, surprised by the rawness in Drake's tone. I enjoy the fight too much sometimes, Drake continued. But that doesn't make me the villain. It means I'm still human enough to care about the line I'm trying not to cross. Cale let out a tired breath and looked back out into the emptiness. Then what's the next move? Zara's voice cut through the silence like a blade. You need to leave this place. They turned to see her standing at the edge of the broken chamber, her expression unreadable, shadows curling faintly at her feet. There's movement in the north, she continued. A fortress, abandoned by the hunters long ago. But something's stirring there. Monsters beyond the usual. And she hesitated just a fraction. An eternal. Everyone went still. Cale's heart dropped. Another one? Zara nodded. They know what happened here. The eye may be gone, but you made a ripple in the current, Cale. One they'll feel for miles. Lyra tensed. Then we don't have time. If they're coming. No, Cale said, his voice firm. We're not running. Drake's eyes lit up with a dangerous glint. Now that's more like it. Cale turned to face his team, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like armor. I've been reacting for too long. Running from visions, reacting to enemies, playing catch-up. That ends now. Lyra nodded. Then we fight on our terms. Zara arched an eyebrow. Careful, Cale. Choosing the battlefield doesn't always mean choosing the outcome. I know. Cale's hand clenched into a fist, aura subtly flaring. But I'd rather die standing for what I believe in than live as something I'm not. Elsewhere, a tower of dark crystal loomed in the deadlands. Inside, cloaked figures knelt before a throne of writhing shadow. She has fallen, a voice echoed, dry and ancient. The eye is shattered, the echo severed. A taller figure emerged from the mist, face hidden beneath an ivory mask etched with red sigils. The child moves too fast, the masked Eternal said, and too loud. A servant dared to speak. Shall we interfere? No, the Eternal murmured. Let him believe he has choice. The path is already written. The shadows pulsed in agreement. Back in the living world, night had fallen by the time they exited the dungeon. The stars above flickered like dying embers, and Cale couldn't shake the feeling that the sky was watching him. They camped near a ridge, just far enough to avoid detection, but close enough to see the damage the dungeon's collapse had left in the valley. Drake poked at the fire with a stick. You know, I never thought I'd be here, sitting with the guy I was planning to punch into a coma a few weeks ago. Cale smirked, faint but genuine. You still can try. Later, Drake said, reclining with a yawn, maybe when you're not brooding so hard. Cale let the smile fade, eyes drifting to the firelight dancing in Lyra's hair as she tended to a wound on Zara's shoulder. They all carried scars now, some visible, others buried deep. He stared into the flames and whispered under his breath. Oh, what a strong aura. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. a quiet promise to himself, because from here on out, things were only going to get harder. The Eternals were watching. The system was shifting, and Kale Arclight had chosen to stand in the middle of it all, not as a pawn, but as something more. The road to the north was nothing like the tales described in the guild records. No banners, no echoes of past glories, just scorched trees, bleached stone, and silence so deep it felt like it clung to the bones. The kind of silence that screamed. Kale led the way, cloak billowing behind him, the ashen aura subtly pulsing beneath his skin. Every step toward the fortress sent a strange pull through his chest, like something ancient was calling out. No, reacting to him. Drake trailed close, cracking his neck as he walked, firelight sparking off his infernal gauntlets. "This place gives me the creeps," he muttered. "And I like creepy." Lyra's expression was more focused. No birds, no monsters, no sounds. That's not just unnatural. That's controlled. Someone, or something, wants this path clear, Zara added from behind her mask, eyes locked on the horizon. And they want us to reach the fortress. Kale didn't break stride. Then let's not keep them waiting. The ruins of the old stronghold rose like blackened teeth from the earth. Once called Duskwatch, it had been a bastion for elite guild hunters during the peak of dungeon outbreaks. Abandoned after a mass vanishing. Its name hadn't been spoken in years. Now it waited. As they entered the outer gates, Kale's aura flared instinctively. The structure responded. Shadows peeled away from the walls, revealing massive murals etched in dried aura, scenes of old wars, fallen gods, and a sigil Kale had only seen in the eye's vision. A sword splitting a sun. He paused. This mark. Zara stepped beside him. The symbol of Vayrix, an eternal who once masqueraded as a human warlord. He corrupted entire guilds during the Shatter Wars. This fortress was once his prize. Drake glanced around. "So, we're camping in haunted enemy territory." "Great. Not camping," Kale said. "We're taking it back." Within the fortress, they moved carefully through the halls, activating old aura-lit sconces that sparked to life one by one. Dust clung to everything, and yet the air was too clean, like the place had been kept, preserved. Lyra placed a hand on a cracked wall, feeling the pulse of dormant energy. There's a ley core underneath. Something massive. Sealed. Drake smirked. "So let's crack it open." "No," Zara warned. "We open nothing until we understand what Vayrix left behind." Kale's attention drifted toward a doorway at the far end of the hall. A strange hum pulsed through the air, resonating with his ashen aura. It wasn't just reacting, it was sinking. He walked ahead without a word. The room beyond was circular. Black stone, cracked mirrors. A pedestal at its center held a relic unlike any other. A sword, long jagged. The blade shimmered between obsidian and silver, as if unsure what it wanted to be. It radiated aura, untamed, raw, ancient. Kale's hand twitched. Zara entered behind him and froze. "That's not just a weapon." "What is it?" Kale asked quietly. "It's a grave blade." Zara's voice dropped. "Forged from the aura of a fallen god. They were thought destroyed." Drake whistled low. "I want one." Lyra didn't smile. "One wrong move, and it'll consume whoever touches it." Kale approached. The blade pulsed harder the closer he came, like it recognized him. He reached out, hesitant, then gripped the hilt, and the world went dark. Inside the grave blade's memory, Kale stood in a world of black sand and silver skies. Shadows twisted in the distance, monsters made of regrets and rage. Then he saw him, a figure of pure light and flame, wielding the same blade. His movements were flawless, cutting down shadows with impossible grace. But there was something in his eyes. Despair. He turned, looked directly at Kale. "You seek to wield what you do not understand." Kale held his ground. "I don't seek it. It found me." The figure's aura surged, solar fire wrapped in mourning. "Then you will bear its curse." "What are you?" "I was Valorn, last of the Dawnbound, slayer of Eternals. Now just memory." The blade in Kale's hand burned white-hot. "If you carry my sword," Valorn said, "then carry my sin. And know this, power taken is never power earned." Then the memory shattered. Back in the real world, Kale gasped, eyes wide, steam rising from his skin. The grave blade rested at his side, now faintly pulsing in sync with his aura. Drake looked both impressed and slightly annoyed. Okay, so you do get cooler swords. Zara frowned. You saw him, didn't you? The original wielder? Kale nodded. He was warning me. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. But you're still you, Kale. For now, he said softly. Then the ground shook. A crack split through the center of the fortress floor. The lay core beneath had awakened. From the fissure rose not a monster, but a man, dressed in black armor lined with bone, aura darker than shadow, a sigil on his chest. A sun cracked open. Zara's eyes widened. No. Kale stepped forward. You're Vayrix. The Eternal smiled faintly. No, I am what he left behind. The figure stood, unmoving, his silhouette framed by the rising aura mist that now bled from the cracked earth beneath the fortress. Dark armor shaped like fossilized flame wrapped around his body, almost pulsing with each breath he took. Kale's grip tightened on the grave blade, its weight unfamiliar but alive. It hummed in his hand, as if anticipating something. Or someone. You're not Vayrix, Kale said quietly. The being nodded once. No, but I'm the echo he left, the embodiment of his final will, his vengeance forged into form. Zara's voice trembled, a rare fracture in her composed tone. A wraithbound, an Eternal's last hatred given shape. You're not supposed to exist, Lyra whispered. And yet here I stand, the wraithbound replied, to judge the one who dares claim the blade of Valorn. Without warning, he moved. A blur of shadows, a punch of force. Kale barely raised the grave blade in time to block the strike. The impact sent him skidding backward, feet grinding against stone. Sparks erupted between blade and fist, flame meeting void. Drake lunged in without hesitation, infernal gauntlets blazing. Back off, Bone Boy. He swung hard, fire exploding with each punch. The wraithbound caught his fist midair, aura crackling like thunder between them. Then he twisted, slamming Drake into a nearby wall, the stone cratering around him. Too slow, the wraithbound said. Zara's wraith bell rang sharply, a cold mist curling around her form. Bind. Chains of cursed aura erupted from the air, seeking to tether the wraithbound, but they burned away the moment they touched him. He turned to her. You carry the stench of secrets. Be silent. A wave of black flame burst from his palm. Zara barely blinked away, the edge of her cloak catching fire mid-vanish. Kale growled low in his throat. Enough. He launched forward. Graveblade met the wraithbound's aura, each strike singing with force. They clashed in a whirlwind of slashes and counterblows, Kale moving faster than he'd ever moved, his ashen aura dancing, adapting. React. Learn. Overwhelm. But the wraithbound was relentless. Every parry came with a lesson in brutality. Every dodge only delayed the inevitable. You swing that blade like a child wielding history. The wraithbound mocked, his eyes burning. Do you even know what that sword has done? Kale gritted his teeth. I know enough. Then die knowing. The wraithbound's aura surged, the entire fortress vibrating with its pressure. From his hands, a dark corona of cursed fire flared outward, a dome meant to consume. Ashen domain, flicker veil. Kale's aura burst outward, his domain shimmering to life in a pulse of ghostly ash and silver. The wraithbound's flame halted, slowed. Time seemed to bend, just for a breath. Kale dashed in, blade trailing embers, and for the first time, he cut the wraithbound. A shallow wound across the side. The wraithbound staggered back slightly, expression shifting. You adapted. For the first time, his voice held a note of curiosity. Ashen adaptive resonance. A relic class long thought extinct. Kale's chest heaved. I don't care what it's called. I'll use whatever it takes. The wraithbound stared at him for a moment longer, then smiled faintly. Then perhaps you're not unworthy. He raised both arms. The floor beneath them cracked again, this time not from force, but from something underneath trying to escape. You're not the only one who evolves. From the core beneath the fortress, a monstrous scream, echoed upward. Lyra screamed, "Something's rising." Zera's eyes narrowed. "He's triggering a fusion." "Domain sync fusion," the Wraithbound said. "You face not just me, but the will of Vayrix and the Lacor's power." Black tendrils of aura coiled around him. Bones reshaped. His form grew larger, more feral. Horns erupted from his helm. Wings made of burnt ash and glass unfolded behind him. The fortress itself sank as the transformation completed. Drake finally rose from the rubble, wiping blood from his lip. "Okay, I hate to admit it, but that's kind of badass." Kale didn't respond. His grave blade flared again, reacting to the monster before them. He felt it deep in his bones. This wasn't just a test anymore. This was survival. The sky had no stars, just ash. The once grand fortress trembled as the Wraithbound's sync fusion form took its final shape. Flames no longer danced. They howled, like dying gods whispering from the seams of reality. The monstrosity before them wasn't just a foe. It was wrath incarnate. His voice now rumbled like an ancient furnace. "Let me show you what true aura feels like." He stepped forward. The ground melted where his foot fell. Kale stood his ground. "Lyra, barrier," he said, not taking his eyes off the Wraithbound. Lyra gritted her teeth, raising the sun veil feather high. "Solar Warden." Golden light bloomed, shielding Kale and the others in a dome of warmth and resistance. But even it flickered under the pressure radiating from the fused form. "Zera, any blind spots?" Kale asked quickly. Zera's voice came calm and sharp, 2 seconds between flame surges when he lifts his right arm. "That's your opening." Drake growled, flame already licking up his arms. "I'll keep him busy." Kale shot him a look. "Don't die." Drake grinned. "Can't die before I punch a god." Then he charged. The Wraithbound roared, unleashing a storm of cursed flame, but Drake met it head-on, punching through the wave with sheer brute aura. Fire exploded around him, but he didn't stop. Infernal blitz. The impact lit the air like a falling sun, briefly staggering the Wraithbound. Zera vanished into the mist, flanking. Echo bind. Chains of spectral energy wrapped around the Wraithbound's legs for a heartbeat. Enough. Kale dashed in, his grave blade glowing white-hot with ashen energy. Burnout dash. He slipped under the Wraithbound's swinging claw, slashed upward in a perfect arc, cutting through the core in its chest. The blade sang. Not metal, but memory. The sound of dying kings, falling empires, broken oaths. The Wraithbound screamed. Kale leapt back, breathing hard. But it wasn't over. The Wraithbound dropped to one knee, smoke pouring from the wound. "You've resonated with the grave blade." Kale's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," the Wraithbound said, "your soul has begun to echo with Valorn's wrath. You're changing." And that blade, the grave blade, pulsed again. And Kale saw it. For a moment, just a glimpse. Another time, another wielder. A man with the same white hair, standing alone on a field of black glass. Slaying Eternals. Burning the sky. The Wraithbound's voice was distant now. "You are his shadow. The last arc of a circle long forgotten." Kale shook the vision from his mind. "I don't care who I'm supposed to be." He raised the blade. "I'll forge who I am." The grave blade responded, shifting. Its edge grew darker, runes glowing along the spine. It was alive now. Linked. Grave blade resonance unlocked. Skill gained. Soul scorch. Ignite a fragment of a defeated enemy's aura and embed it into your next strike. Stronger against higher-ranked foes. Kale's aura surged. Ashen flame now spiked with traces of cursed fire. The Wraithbound laughed, even as his body began to crack and wither. "Then come, Echo of Valorn. Show me how you break fate." Kale charged once more, blade trailing spectral fire. They collided. One last time. The dust didn't settle. It collapsed. Everything was still. Kale stood over the crumbling remains of the Wraithbound, chest heaving. The grave blade was sheathed on his back, smoke still curling from its edge. Drake sat slumped on a rock nearby, coughing up soot. That guy was a whole nightmare. Zera emerged from the shadows, her eyes narrowed. "That was a memory seal. You saw it too, didn't you?" Kale said nothing. Lyra stepped beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. We won. That's what matters. But Kale didn't feel victorious. He felt watched, like something beyond the veil had seen him awaken, like something was waiting. A silence had settled over the ruins of the fortress. Not peace, just quiet. The kind that lingers after something ancient dies and the world holds its breath. Kale stood at the heart of the wreckage, his hands still resting on the Graveblade's hilt. Beneath his boots, cracks stretched like veins, glowing faintly with dying aura. The lay core beneath had gone dormant, its wrath consumed in the battle. But Kale's mind was anything but still. That vision, the white-haired warrior standing over a battlefield of Eternals. That feeling that the Graveblade had recognized him, not just as a wielder, but as something more. A fragment of Valorn's will, Zara said behind him, her voice unusually soft. That's what you fought. A Wraithbound, but not just any. Kale turned. Zara's eyes met his, shadowed beneath her hood. You killed a fragment of a forgotten god. Kale didn't flinch. Good. Drake let out a whistle nearby, arms crossed. Well, damn. You could at least pretend to be shaken. Kale looked down at his hands. I am shaken. He flexed his fingers, and black ash shimmered faintly along his knuckles before fading. But I'm not done. Lyra stepped forward, holding her hand over the cracked ground. The sun veil feather emitted a soft, golden pulse, healing what it could. That resonance earlier, your aura changed. Not just strengthened, evolved. Kale nodded. The Graveblade is more than a weapon. It remembers. It adapts. Like you, Zara said. Ashen aura. Adaptive class. You were always meant for this. That made Kale pause. Meant for what? Zara didn't answer. Instead, she crouched near the crater where the Wraithbound had collapsed. Her fingers traced over the charred stone. There's something else buried here. Kale joined her. A soft hum. Not the rage of aura, but something older. Zara stood and pulled out a sliver of obsidian, a shard shaped like a teardrop, marked with glowing runes that pulsed with residual flame. Memory core, she said. This is how the Wraithbound remembered Valorn's final moments. We can extract more from it. Drake stretched his arms with a groan. Another cursed relic, huh? Love it. Kale stared at the shard. Will it help me understand the blade? Zara nodded. And maybe help you understand yourself. Hours later, temporary camp, ridge of Ember Deep. A fire crackled between them. For the first time in days, they weren't fighting, running, or bleeding. They sat in a ring of worn stones. The Graveblade laid across Kale's lap like a resting beast. Zara held the memory core above the firelight. The resonance of this relic is unstable. But if Kale touches it while connected to the blade, we might see what Valorn saw. Lyra frowned. That sounds dangerous. Everything that leads to truth usually is, Zara replied. Kale nodded. Do it. Zara passed him a shard. The moment it touched his palm, the fire dimmed. Shadows stretched. And then, he wasn't sitting anymore. He stood at the edge of a cliff, winds howling, sky broken. Below him, a war raged. Massive figures with wings and flame tearing through armies of mortals. Eternals, unchained, and at the heart of it stood Valorn, cloaked in armor of molten ash, face hidden behind a helm crowned with jagged flame. A voice echoed through the memory, not spoken aloud, but pressed into Kale's soul. I burned the sky to protect them, but they feared the fire. Kale felt the Graveblade pulse again, so I left behind my wrath, for the one who would not fear it. The vision fractured, breaking apart like glass. Kale gasped and fell to one knee, clutching his chest. His aura flared involuntarily, the ash and flames spiking outward before fading. Zara was already beside him. What did you see? Kale looked up, eyes flickering with faint emberlight. He wasn't trying to conquer the world, Kale said. He was trying to save it. Drake raised a brow. A god trying to play hero. That's rich. But the world turned against him, Kale said. So he became a monster instead. Lyra whispered, like you're afraid you will. Kale didn't answer. He stared into the fire, the Graveblade still humming gently in his lap. I need to grow stronger. Zara narrowed her gaze. Then we'll need to push further into the next dungeon sector. Kale stood. Where's the closest one? Zara didn't hesitate. The Rift of Drowned Flame. It's a collapsed Tier A dungeon. Dangerous. Mostly forgotten. Drake cracked his knuckles. I like forgotten. Means nobody strong's guarding it. Zara added, it was once home to another Eternal. A beast of living magma. Something still alive in there. Kale's aura flickered around him like a cloak. The Grave Blade whispered again. Good, he muttered. Then that means there's something worth killing.